real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Midnight's Edge in the morning. How's it going, kids? We have
Excellent.
Andre the Boss Man with us. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Paul.
Yeah, I'm good, and I'm glad that things are excellent with Paul as well. The only cut in my joy, as we say in Norway, is certain announcements at Comic-Con, but we shall get back to those in due time.
Interesting. Yes, indeed. We also have with us Paul Chato.
Hello.
Coming in from the GTA.
Yep. And although not the game GTA, which looks like it's going to suck.
Yeah.
But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, that was a story I sent Andre last week we didn't get to, where they're worried about the game basically.
Oh, yeah. Crushed. Well, my son is a big GTA fan, has been playing it for a long time, and all his coterie of GTA chums are saying that this is looking bad.
Yeah, it's one of the few games I actually do play and get on the day it comes out. And it was probably one of the few games that keeps me into gaming. Because honestly, there's not much out there I really do.
Well, the original people who made most of those original games
are gone. Yeah.
Anyway, I've got my avatar because I'm eating, and you don't need to see me eating.
Well, pizza. We like pizza here.
I like turtles.
I saw your pizza before we went live here. It looked like the Norwegian pizza Grandiosa.
Wow.
Being trapped in the outer rim, kill for Grandiosa right about now. The Norwegians know what I'm talking about. But
I actually had a Deadpool pizza the other day. DiGiorno did a line of 4 flavors to celebrate Deadpool. He had like chimichanga flavor, ultimate pepperoni. I can't remember the other 2, but yeah, the ultimate pepperoni was all right.
Or just need anchovy. I wish there were anchovies on
it. You eat those things?
Yep.
Speaking of salty fish, we also have culture here.
Hey, that was like very kindest segue you could have come up with. But I will say that I'm glad to be here. Lots of like things we can talk about. Not only the box office, but as you guys pointed out, GTA, which I'm a huge fan of, and now I'm not real happy about. So there's that. Yeah.
Who's hanging out by a speedway? It sounded like there.
Oh, that's me. The window is open because otherwise I will. Look on the bright side. There hasn't been an ambulance yet because.
True.
Yeah,
it actually sounded like you were hanging out at a race. I was like, what the hell?
I know. It's like even if I'm the 10th floor, which is the 13th floor everywhere else, it's. You can still hear.
That's not how math works. What?
Well, it is here. It is here in the outer rim.
In Tatooine, everybody has 13 levels, but instead they say it's 10.
Yeah, no, like the first floor begins in the third level.
Yeah, I don't know. The math's
it's outer rim math.
Oh, yeah.
I quit.
Anyway, moving on.
Let's see what the audience is saying. Considering we have lovely wrenches here already, like D-Bud and Daryl, who are swinging them around. You thought I was going to say one of the ladies, didn't you guys? We also have great people in the chat, like Coach O'Dragon and One Punch Man Token Fan. I saw Gojira star there.
Gojira.
Adam of Grayskull. We got Rick Johnson in the house. Rick Johnson's my buddy. He sends me goodies. He sends me movies. Speaking of, if Sean Estep is listening, man, I've been trying to get a hold of you for a while. Thank you for all the stuff you sent me too, by the way. We got I already said Daryl Brewer, but we got Hyper Guyver. We've got Shotgun Fringe here. All kinds of regulars. Welcome to the program. B-Man's here. Hit the like button. Oh, Malice Flair's here. There's somebody I haven't seen in a while. How you doing? Hit the like button, share out the stream, let everybody know that we're live and we're talking about all the shenanigans going on over at Marvel. Let's see what you guys are saying as far as super chats and member milestones. We got Corbin Dallas here for 9 months. Thank you for that, Corbin. Ruby Hoove has been here for a month. Thank you for that. And Samuel Main has been here for 4. Thank you for that. Dr. Long Dongler sending in his £1.99 super sticker. That's right. Reminding us to pound that like button. We got a new member in J Rex. I like that. J Rex. And Paul just went and got a soda. What you got? Oh, it's a Canadian dry. That is such a stereotype.
Yeah. Living up to that.
I've actually tried that recently. Not bad.
It's fucking nasty. No, it's like that's like if some Australian on the panel would bring up Foster's all of a sudden. And we know from most of our Aussie friends, they don't really drink that.
Well, they don't like Foster's down there.
No. And then we got Marksman 117B here. How you doing, Marksman? Who sends in 499, says, saw Deadpool 3. A lot of people did. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. Enjoyed it, but I kind of agree with Mahler. Weakest of the 3 after film finished. Guy in the theater said still mid, not rewatchable type. Oh, I liked it much better than Deadpool 2.
Yeah. To counter that, I saw it a second time over the course of the weekend.
Oh, wow.
To me, it held up even better the second time around.
I can see that.
Now I was able to pick up more subtleties that I didn't see the first time around. And this movie is rapidly rising on my list of favorite MCU movies.
I've been wanting to go see it again. I just haven't had a chance.
I'm going to see it again tomorrow on Discount Tuesday.
There you go.
But
and you're a senior, so I think you can get even more off, right?
Pardon me, what?
And you're a senior, so you can get even more off, right?
I can get even, again, more benefits of being a senior.
That's right. You're like a double senior.
I'm not there yet.
But yeah, I've heard some mixed reactions, but for the most part, people have seemed to enjoyed it quite a bit. And then we got Hyper Guyver 2 says, Paul, just a couple of things. Psy aren't swords. This is true. I have a pair. Psy have no sharp edges. Well, they can. They can have a pokey edge. Also, Psy is both plural and singular. This is also true. Keep up the sugar bear, or keep it up, sugar bear. Bye, bye, bye.
That's you know what?
If I have to go get my size,
if you go online to buy a Psy, it's in the sword section. So I understand what you're talking about. And some of them are not just pokey ends. Some of them actually have blades. There's a wide variety of them. So I said swords because I thought if I did my review and I said, oh, and her pair of Psy, I don't think anyone would have understood what.
Oh, yeah, they would. You want to know why?
Why?
I like turtles.
Oh, boy.
You forgot the Ninja Turtles. Like, we know what Psy are because of Raphael.
I know. Well, okay.
Tom is not wrong about this.
I didn't know what they were called until Ninja Turtles. I knew I've seen them before, but I never knew what the hell they were called.
You don't overestimate the knowledge of your audience.
Well, it's a big point in the 1990 movie because Raph loses one of his Psy.
Okay, first of all, Tom's not allowed to show his size on.
I will show my size, sir.
No, I don't think I want to see that. And second,
the Psy matters.
You guys are both making me sigh right now. We got more stuff to cover. Good gracious.
Yeah, he wants to get to the BO, not body odor. Box.
No. If I wanted that, I'd have gone to Comic-Con.
Oh my God, we are so hot, you bitches.
That's
right. I was about to caddy this morning, Ivan. Bucky Cat's been here for 16 months. Holy crap, Bucky Cat. That's a long time.
What's your face?
Yeah. And then Jay is gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. That's very generous of you. In fact, we're due for another member stream, so I got to bug Andre on that.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. All right.
2 weeks.
I'll hold you to it. Patrick Robinson sends in 499, says, where is the Sonic 3 trailer? Surprised we didn't hear anything from San Diego Comic-Con. Yeah, it's kind of a lackluster Comic-Con, but we're going to discuss that in more depth here in just a few minutes. But yeah, anything that you guys were excited about out of Comic-Con, really?
One thing had me excited. The trailer, the full trailer for Hellboy the Crooked Man. It looked surprisingly not bad at all. And that's the thing that has me the most excited coming out to Comic-Con, and that should speak oodles about everything else. I was not excited about the promise of a Dexter prequel, nor was I excited about the promise of a Dexter sequel featuring his son, because Dexter himself is dead. I was not too excited about this Sega series, which is based on a Sega property I'm not familiar with. It's a new series coming on Amazon Prime. Hopefully that will be cool. I was not excited with Penguin, because it's a series I feel should never have been made, because it belongs to the wrong universe. Let's see, what else was I not excited about? Well, let's just say I was excited about the Deadpool panel. But that's for a movie that was already released. But beyond that, for things which are here's something to think.
Section 31 trailer.
Yeah, Savage Sword of Conan. The comic book was only supposed to run for 6 issues as a trial to see how it worked. And they announced during the Conan panel that it has worked out so well that is being extended for another year and 6 more issues. So that's fantastic. There was the Star Trek panel. The less said about that, the better. But I'm sure we'll talk about it.
We're getting to the point you say much more. We might as well just talk about
it. But yeah, overall, I would say that this year's Comic-Con was a pretty disappointing affair, all in all. But we can get to that after the box office and the Marvel stuff, because really that's all of the Comic-Con, didn't it? So we'll leave that to.
Yeah, there was no Superman anything or DC related anything.
Well, there was a trailer for the Creature Comforts.
Who fucking cares?
I would rather not have seen that, also, to be honest.
And I heard it looked just like Suicide Squad. I didn't even watch it. I'm just like, who fucking cares? This is the lamest thing ever. We are under a year away from Superman. How the hell is this not the Comic-Con where you're dropping stuff for Superman? This was your time to drop some footage.
What? I'm glad they didn't, because the Doom thing would have doomed it. So I'm glad they did.
I agree with Andre.
I don't. Yeah. Maybe I'll concede that one, but yeah. Ruby Hooves says looking forward to seeing Deadpool and Wolverine tomorrow. So Ruby hasn't seen it yet. There's a few people in the house, I'm sure, who haven't. But no worries. We're not. I don't think we're gonna get too spoilerific today.
Yeah, we'll keep this.
But we are going to talk
still
about.
Don't want to rob anyone of the joy of discovering this movie for themselves. I have something to say about that. But first, box office. Take it away.
Yes, because this has been a nutty weekend, and nobody really could have foresaw this. But I mean, I kind of called it. But yeah.
Yeah, and look, this exceeded my expectations. I'm proud to take an L on this one, which I'm often not, but I really thought this film was going to stay down just under that tight little $1 billion number, and it looks like it is well on its way globally to hitting $1 billion rather easily. And it could be argued that we're sitting at almost $500 million now, but at an average of $50,000 per theater in 4,200 theaters, Deadpool and Wolverine ran away with the weekend for $211 million domestically, as you can see here. But that's not the entire story, of course, because globally it's sitting at $444,300,000. That's a lot of cash. Now, we knew it would be heavily front-loaded because FOMO around MCU movies is always the order of the day. The question is, and based on the commentary you heard recently by all these gentlemen who have seen the film, is repeat viewing in people's futures? Well, for me, not so much, but for other people like Mr. Paul Chato, Mr. Tom Connors, and Mr. Andre Iyengar, I hope I didn't butcher your name terribly.
You do more than anyone else does, so it's all good.
I choked on my tongue trying to get that right. But anyway, Look at these numbers, 444 million. So if everybody that says they're going back goes back, I think we add maybe another 400 million by next weekend globally. What do you guys think? This is
I've known a couple
bonkers
people
sauce.
already who've seen it a couple times.
Wow.
And I know people who want to go see it again but couldn't get into a screening.
Wow.
Think about it this way too, because Mr. H and I are kind of going back and forth about this, because we have a bet that I said this is going to be the biggest movie of the year, and he said no way. And one of his main reasons was because of the R rating, and I don't think he's taken into consideration that outside of the US, this movie isn't getting an R rating.
That's a very good point, because across all of Europe, this is rated pretty much the same as most MCU movies. Because I can certainly say that, like in Norway, for instance, even though I'm not there, this has the same. It's like a 15 as opposed to like 11, but that's not a huge difference, because the big bulk of the audience are the over 15s, because they are the ones that can go on their own. It's not a huge difference if it's 11 or if it's 15. So for all intents and purposes, it may as well have been 11 or PG or PG-11, because it's PG-15.
Kind of like your PG-13.
Exactly. And that's the case in most of Europe, because in most of Europe, movies are assessed differently than what you do in the States.
Right.
The bigger issue here is the swearing. Since the violence is so comedic, there's a high threshold for it. It's not the equivalent of rated R pretty much anywhere, which means that this is really going to deliver the goods, and people are back for it. I'm in the outer rim, as I said, and here there's not that many people in theaters. There's two exceptions to this. One was Barbie. I was shocked and dismayed to see that people went out of their every single length possible to see that movie. Everyone and their mother, especially, went to see that movie. Now, I'm not going to say that as many are going to see Wolverine and Deadpool, but it's pretty darn close. I have never seen theaters so packed here in the Canary Islands since Barbie for this movie right here. I never thought I would see crowds like that again here. But
and I've had
every screening is packed.
And I was going to say, and I've had other friends that have said they're going to see it who normally don't go to see movies that often, right? So that's another thing. And this is what I was saying about
Europe
Deadpool.
Is a more sophisticated community than North America, mainly because their kids are educated, and compared to the U.S. And the other thing too is, I mean, if you compare France's opening ceremonies to Deadpool, then this thing is actually rated for, in utero.
Yeah, this is rated for absolutely all audiences. Compared to the strictly Satanist and LGBTQIAP plus only audience, with emphasis on the T and outwards in that whole frame of alphabet, because I know the regular LGB, which really you could sum up as G, were every bit as horrified as everyone else.
That's it. Sorry, I didn't mean to stray into that topic.
Yeah, we can talk about that maybe towards the end here. That was something else.
When we were talking initially about this movie, I got the sense that this was going to hit Barbie numbers.
That's kind of what I've been saying, and that's what I've been coming from, is this is definitely going to be, I mean, look, it could get beat out by something. There's still Moana. Inside Out 2 is quite the hurdle to have to leap over. But what Deadpool 3 doesn't have is any competition. There's nothing coming out really until Alien. And that's a big, if that even pulls people off that, because that's a bit of a different crowd. So I don't know. I think that's going to be hard pressed, especially considering how hardcore this movie opened up. I mean, this is a bigger opening than Inside Out 2, right? Culture?
I haven't compared it to that directly, but it's a bigger opening than anybody expected. If it beat Inside Out 2, I'm not surprised. We can certainly add that to the scale here.
I think it did.
I think you're probably right. But In looking at it, Tom, I mean, this is built on. Please go there. This is built on the fact that each of the films have done just slightly better than the others, and this film just seemed to have zoomed to the stratosphere.
The numbers is still running like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it's kind of in dump mode. I don't know.
Culture, can we have some comparisons? Like these numbers, what does it compare to?
Well, again, right now, if we just compared it to the most recent super film, Inside Out 2, as Tom suggested, with a $200 million budget, this thing beat it out of the water. This is an R-rated film beating a 4-quadrant film right down the street.
Jesus, look about how much. Jesus,
Yeah.
almost 60 million, $55 million.
Yeah, and again, I mean, comparatively, Deadpool 2 was at 125 and Deadpool 1. Again, we were in different economic situations, so maybe those are terrible comparisons. But in opening weekend, even after adjusted for inflation, this thing is starting to compete with Deadpool 2's entire domestic box office run here in the States. So that's bonkers sauce, right? And again, adjusted for inflation, obviously Deadpool the original looks better, but you're looking at its comparison in 1 week, looking at a 6-week film or more in Inside Out 2 at $600 million. I have a feeling this is going to close that gap. And at $1.5 billion, maybe $1 billion, 3 isn't out of the realm of possibility for,
Well, and what I've been saying is don't underestimate Hugh Jackman. That's what I was saying from the start.
Yeah.
Because Wolverine is very popular. It's been a few years since we've had a Wolverine
movie. Can I say that it's never going to happen, but he deserves an Oscar nod for this performance?
If he was going to get one, it would have been Logan, unfortunately, and that didn't happen.
This is more important than Logan. Logan was like a beautiful actress who slums it for a movie to a certain degree. This one, he has got to carry a stupid movie and make it emotional. And some of the scenes, and he plays it straight. You have to give him credit for just how he carries this movie.
I see where you're coming from, but I still say Logan was the shot.
No, it's the more obvious Oscar nod.
Yeah,
I'm agreeing with you. I'm not.
But here's the thing. You know what, Paul? I agree with you. Like, it's never going to happen because the Academy doesn't work like that unless they suddenly realize that, oh shit, we really need to win back the audience here. But I see where you're coming from, and here's like the thing. I'm not going to spoil anything, but there is one emotional scene in Deadpool and Wolverine, and this scene echoes the entirety of Logan. It even features,
I know
then you know which scene I'm talking about. I would say that the acting that we see from Hugh Jackman there shows more raw emotion and vulnerability than he has ever portrayed in any X-Men movie before. If you are looking for one particular scene to give an Oscar, just going all his entire thing as Wolverine, I agree. Logan as a whole is the more Oscar-baiting movie. That one scene is his single strongest performance ever as Wolverine. And it's
and I also said that if anything, that Logan was going to be when Patrick Stewart was going to get an Oscar nomination, and he didn't. So at the end of the day, unless it's a Dark Knight Returns or something like that, they're never going to give comic book movies their just due in that respect. But I agree with you. I agree as far as the type of performance he's giving here, and the amount of weight that he has to bring to the table. I totally agree with you in that respect. But that being said, I mean, I think just about everybody's surprised except for me and how big this movie is opened. It sounds like, and I'm not trying to be all like, I told you guys. No, I've been saying this for a while. Don't underestimate this, especially with Hugh Jackman, because women love Hugh Jackman. Women love Ryan Reynolds. Women love Deadpool. So I bet you on the demographic side of this thing, I've seen some demographics already. I'm still willing to bet that it's a pretty 60-40 split audience.
Sure. Oh, for sure. For sure. But also, Culture, I'm sure you have more to say about the box office, but let's be clear here that this is going to be really important as we move on here. This victory right here although Kevin Feige is going to try to claim credit or try to diminish it, which he's doing already. This is Ryan Reynolds' victory. This is Team Reynolds and Chapek who enabled them to make this movie. Because, Tom, what was it that you said about the PG-13 rated cut of Deadpool 2 last week? I think that bears repeating. How do you think that thing came to be?
And that came to be because because the Fox acquisition happened, I believe, right around the same time Deadpool 2 came out. Okay. And Bob Iger, I believe, was the champion of this to try and push for a PG-13 rated Deadpool 2 so they could test the waters on it. And it was a failed experiment because it bombed horribly at the box office, even though the portion of the profits were supposed to go for some children's, I believe, children's charity. It still bombed horribly. Point being, so when I bring up that it didn't lose the money, so that's the only reason I don't bring it up when I bring up Justice League. But in that respect, I think at that point is when the entire relationship between Ryan Reynolds and Disney soured, because this has been a long patch between films if you think about it. That was 2018. It's been that long now. And it wasn't until Bob Chapek was in office and Hugh Jackman called Ryan Reynolds, because that's how this thing all got started. Because as far as we know, basically Deadpool 3 was dead in the water. Because they had those initial meetings and everything went sour, I guess, is from what we had heard and everybody has kind of heard. And it's kind of been confirmed now by the things that Ryan and Hugh have said. The only name that hasn't come up that's important in this is Bob Chapek, because it was one of the few things he greenlit when he was there.
Yep.
Because it could not get done under Bob Iger. Bob Iger was not going to allow them to release an R-rated Marvel movie. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, indeed.
And
keep that in mind. Sorry, carry on, Paul.
I was just going to say that speaking of Kevin Feige, yes, we know he's going to take all the credit for this. And we know his history of telling Hugh Jackman not to do it because Logan should have been, the finest work ever, and he should just leave it. Which was, again, he knows nothing about comic books and how to have fun with the business. But notwithstanding that, in my screening, when Kevin Feige's name came up, the audience booed.
Wow.
That's funny.
I'm glad to hear that. More people are watching Midnight's Edge and learning the truth here.
Obviously, was enough people who've been watching YouTube reviewers and shows.
I'm sure a lot of it's nerdrotic and critical truth.
I'd
love to take a little bit of credit.
Yeah. But I was completely shocked because I thought for the audience he would be an unknown quantity, but he was lustily booed.
That bastard, Kevin Feige, he has gone and he has made himself a celebrity. He has put out so many stories. That's why so many people know him. And they think that he is the sole architect of the MCU, because that asshole has been using like PR advisors to get his name out there from the very beginning. When in reality, he's just a production guy, and he could have been replaced by a dozen others who could have done exactly what he did and probably done it better. Like, for instance, Iron Man, his biggest contribution to that movie? That it started filming without having a proper script, that they had to do a shit ton of reshoots and stuff. That's Feige's contribution. That they were able to salvage the movie anyway, that was Favreau. And that it was after that Ike Perlmutter instituted the Marvel Creative Committee, specifically because he realized we need some oversight here, because they couldn't have a messy production like that again. And that's when all of the smears against Perlmutter started in the press. And there are some people who say, "Oh, you Andre, you always spoke so highly of Kevin Feige before and trashed Perlmutter." Yeah, I did, because that's the information that was out there. We used that information in good faith, but it was fake news planted by Team Feige. And that's what we're seeing.
Well,
here.
And it was partially true for a while, as long as he had the Marvel Creative Committee behind him and certain other things. Right? Like, I'm not going to sit there and take away credit from the guy who was a big part of arguably the biggest franchise of all time.
He was part of the team. I'm not.
But
taking that away from him.
he also has been there long enough, and he's excluded and, you know, killed off certain areas of influence to the point where he has become his own worst enemy.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, that is where we're at now. And now he's acting out of desperation. What is he doing? He got to, you know, I'm sure after this all happened, he rushed Deadpool and Wolverine through production, because this thing was a lot like Spider-Man No Way Home. That's what I've been comparing it to, because once this thing got rolling, it was like a train heading down a track, and they're lucky they have it, because we all know this is an island in a sea of piss, as I've been saying for a while. Nobody's going to go see the next couple films, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the Comic-Con stuff. But
yeah.
Anyway, as far as box office, there were other movies, right? Culture besides Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. Well, anything else worth mentioning this weekend?
As you mentioned it, last week's surprise winner, Twisters, actually still doing pretty decent, although a little bit of a stiff fall off at 57%.
Yeah, but not bad.
Yeah, and look, I mean, it's sitting at 154 million.
Considering
domestic.
the competition it has, that's not bad.
Yeah. And Despicable Me still hanging in there, although maybe going to fall short of some expectations at only 290 million after a fall here after being.
That one looks like it might actually disappoint by the end of its run, but I don't think it's going to be a problem between merchandising and video.
I think we have to be realistic in that. If you look at Twisters, and I think any movie that most movies that make $150 million should be considered hugely successful and profitable.
10 years ago,
we shouldn't be looking for every movie to hit $200 million to be considered profitable. They should be able to eke out some decent amount of profit at that $150 million level, or we're just going to fall back into the old BS.
Well, and that's just it, Paul. The trick of that is going to be making movies that are 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollars, and not $200 million, right?
Does anyone know
what was the budget for Twisters? I think this one was actually a little lower budget than what we're used to, right? There was just typical 200. Culture, by chance, do you know?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The budget for Twisters?
Oh, I don't remember. I think it was pretty decent. Pretty big budget. But
all I know is that Frank is happy. This has got to do more. 200 million for the budget.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, and you have the Despicable Me movie. These things cost very little comparatively to Disney's product. I mean, they're about half as much. Despicable Me is about half as much as Inside Out 2. I kind of think that they got beat by a window. I have a feeling that if Despicable Me went first, if it beat Disney to the window, they may have done better with that film and pushed the number down for Inside Out 2, which is still in theaters now after 7 weeks.
I'm disappointed in the budget of Twisters. It should never have been that big.
No.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if part of that isn't money because I don't know exactly how the distribution on this one works, because this movie was a co-production between Warner Brothers and Universal and Amblin, just like the original. Only what they did is they flip-flopped the rights, because the original one was, I believe, domestically it was Warner Brothers, and outside it was of the U.S. it was Universal who had the rights. And then I think they flip-flopped it for this one. But I'm sure both companies put in roughly, half of the budget. Amblin Entertainment probably pocketed half that $200 million for the cost of doing business and Frankie's Coke habit. And then, no, just kidding. But probably not. And that's how this worked out. And at the end of the day, part of it's going to come from, since Universal released it domestically this time, I believe Peacock would end up with the rights. So it's kind of a wash your hands kind of situation. I guess Warner Brothers will get a check from Universal, maybe. What would you say, Culture?
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's not one that's going to probably, at this point, it has to stay where it's at and keep playing for the rest of the summer to be able to eke out a win, I think.
Yeah, but I think the big winner here that everybody's overlooking is Long Legs. Because for a tiny little theater distributor...
It has long legs?
It has long legs. I mean, it's a horror movie. You know, and it's coming out of, you know, A24 Neon. It's got, you know, Nick Cage in it. It had a good weekend again, which is surprising to me. It's 3 weeks in. It's got almost $60 million. You know, I've heard, you know, people talking about the film for a change, you know, and that's kind of neat with a horror movie. I didn't hear a lot of people talking about A Quiet Place Day One or Maxine. In fact, Maxine sounded like people were just irritated with it. I heard that's another A24 thing. And I've heard a lot of people just complain about it. And then the movie that just was absolutely a fart in the wind was The Bike Riders, which I would have thought would have brought more people to it with just the sheer star power alone. So I don't know. It's been a very strange box office this year. I mean, you know, people are really voting with their dollars. Paul, do you see it any other way?
No, although the good news is that you're always going to have flops in a theatrical run. I mean, that goes with the territory. Sure. I'm just looking. The theaters just need a lot of product, a lot of choice, and it will sort itself out on its own because you never know what's going to be successful or not. You have to play the percentages.
Yeah. I'm with you. All I know is
I got an update here real quick. Six sent me in the background.
Oh.
Twisters actually has $155 million budget.
Oh, that's a little better.
A little bit better, yeah.
Yeah,
with its initial, that's a little bit more.
Let's drill down. So
that's before the marketing costs. So yeah.
Yeah, it's right in this expectation. Yeah, it's right in the expectation window, but it's suffering from the fact that the international box office doesn't understand it. It's you know, it's under half of what the.
It's a more of an American film. Yeah. And see, and this is the thing that and this is actually a good point. I don't want to go too far off on this, but
sure.
Here's an issue with part of the things that you were just talking about, Paul, with the budgetary things on films. They need to start looking at these things like, okay, yes, you can spend $150, $200 million on something that you know will play worldwide. Something like Twisters, though, you shouldn't be spending more than $60, $70 million. And I'm sorry, in the day and age where you can basically make this movie on your home computer now, it shouldn't be costing $150 to $200 million to make Twisters.
Yeah. I agree with you. Yep.
Yeah, it was a big deal back in 1994 or 5 or 6, whatever hell year it was that the original Twisters came out, that they were able to do all that with the limited technology we had at that time. But this is literally, you could just push a button on your computer and put in Twisters. You know, you can do it with a phone on your app.
They should have had
a app on your phone.
They should have had a co-marketing deal with Twizzlers.
I think they did for the original.
Did they?
I think so for some reason.
There was some weird co-marketing things that they were doing for sure.
You got to remember the original film, they really sold on the fact that it was from the writer of Jurassic Park, the producers of Jurassic Park, all that kind of business, you know, and stuff. So yeah,
it's still doing okay. It's still, you know,
I'm not surprised. I said this was going to do okay, especially in the US, because the first one did well too. And Americans love disaster films, and we love watching weather, and it just has all those little intricacies that work with it. And it's a movie that's, the best thing about it is it's a movie that stands on its own, even if you haven't seen the original Twister, from what I've heard. Because the only thing that really connects it besides the Twisters is the machine. Otherwise, there's nothing that is, you have to have seen the original movie to watch this one, from what I've heard. So, and that's a benefit for it.
Yeah.
But I'm sure Frankie's sitting back going, we're going to do Twisters 3.
Probably. He wants,
but it's going to be like a 3 in the E there, see? And we're going to put nukes in them.
Yeah, you did have to watch Ahsoka first.
Oh, Lord.
That's sorry. That bad joke.
I'm going to tell you that, you know, he's trying to shed what his wife's doing. I'm telling you right now. He wants to still be looked at as a major player in Hollywood that makes good things still.
Bam McGrath, this doesn't work for everything. I've got a golden touch sometimes when it comes to but sometimes I have bad streaks. I do. I really do. I have in the past, but a few of my predictions lately are movies that I've had good feelings about, especially since like Barbie I've been pretty much pretty close to. The only other one that I said was going to do $1 billion and didn't was Godzilla X Kong that I can think of recently. But that being said, it still did better than the original. But either way, so Twisters is hanging in there. What else we got going on in the box office? Is that the main?
Yeah, I mean,
Deadpool's kind of dominating, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, there's really nothing else here right now. In one foul swoop, Deadpool and Wolverine already caught up to Twisters. It was at it in their second full weekend, and they're in similar number of theaters. I mean, I'm waiting to get the demographic breakdown because I want to see what it looks like male to female and ethnicity and everything else, because I'm starting to feel like that's going to be even more telling of who they recovered at the box office with Deadpool and Wolverine, and who still has no interest in Marvel films. Because I think that's kind of a story in and of itself.
Well, that kind of leads us to our next part, but let's grab a few super chats before we get into that stuff here. We got Tipping Barn, who says, anyone else think that RDJ looks like the Onceler? Did I say that right? Onceler? I'm not sure what that is. Let me look now. Sounds familiar, but it's not ringing a bell.
I don't know what the Onceler is.
Okay, it's a movie character from the Lorax, the character from the Lorax.
Okay. Well, I know what he doesn't look like, namely Doctor Doom. But
I was calling him Dr. Doolittle, and Paul liked that one. That made Paul laugh, so that made me happy. And then we got Satan's Retribution, who sends in 35 South African rands and says that Section 31 trailer has been ratioed. Can we agree this is just desperation for a man clearly on his way out, who now going to be in trouble with the WGA? Well, I don't know about the latter part, although I kind of have somewhat of an idea of what you're talking about. As far as a lot of this stuff was set in motion even before the sales stuff was going on. So, yeah, this is probably the last hoorah for Kurtzman Trek, I would imagine.
I don't know.
They continue to keep him on through Skydance.
He thinks that all this stuff is fabulous.
Of course he does, because he's a queerdo.
Well, that's a different subject. It's just dreadful. I mean,
I think they're both one and the same anymore.
I don't even know if we want to talk about that Section 31 trailer. But
go ahead and give your thoughts on it real quick if you want.
I mean, it's not Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek.
Yeah, I saw it too. It was utter garbage.
Yeah.
And whatever minority shareholders of Paramount, which may remain, they need to sue National Amusements, and they need to sue everyone for violation of fiduciary duties. Because if you look at the data, there can be no possible justification for spending money on this. You keep on pumping money into a franchise that has produced, or an iteration of a franchise that has produced nothing but loss after loss after loss for the shareholders. The only one who is profiting anything on this iteration of Star Trek are the people that can claim a production fee for actually making it. And that fee is ultimately paid by the shareholders, because it's not getting refunded by way of viewership. It really isn't. It's just a pure loss.
Well, this was
look at the bright side. I mean, it's like now a one movie event rather than a full-on series. But Section 31 should never have been made. This entire
it's basically the movie, like I said, it was going to be.
Needs to end.
The only thing that's different is it's not going into theaters like I thought.
Yeah.
This is. I mean, it feels like an unbelievably.
Actually, I think I did report that it was going to be a Paramount
Star Trek merging with Studio 54.
It's been so long since I reported on this shit. Maybe I did remember saying it was going to be a Paramount Plus original. Just like the Academy show is happening too. But again, I think these are
report. I think so, because remember, we had the exclusive that this thing is happening. It is.
Yeah, because I remember that. Yeah, this was a while ago. But like, that's the problem, is I didn't give enough shit about it to pay that much attention to a lot of it, because it's such a non-starter anymore. Look, there's an easy way to fix Trek. If anybody from Skydance is listening, anybody over there at all, first things first, get rid of fucking Kurtzman. It's as easy as that. and then you bring in somebody who actually fucking understands Star Trek, and you continue what you started with Picard. And you know what? You shut everything else down. You do nothing else. Nothing else. You put every stitch of money, effort into that Picard show for one more season. And while you're doing that season of Picard, then what you do is you sit back and you figure out a new show. And I don't give a shit if the show is set way in the future or at the same time as Kirk, but what it doesn't do is cross over with anything else you've ever done before. It can be another ship at the same time as Kirk's crew, and that would be cool because then you could do like a retro future thing and get us back into the TOS world.
I
agree with you wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and there is...
Get movies out of your fucking head. Star Trek is not a movie franchise.
Well...
It's not. It really isn't at the end of the day.
No, it's true, and this thing is, I think, is a contractual obligation production because they made some promises to Michelle.
Yes, I believe this is something that has to do with,
and it's so not Star Trek. It's weirdly, I mean, it gave hints of the witches from Ahsoka, along with a bit of Guardians of the Galaxy. So I don't know what this Section 31 now has become. It's now some ops team that goes and does stuff as opposed to even being TVA-ish. You know what I mean? I mean, it's at some point I thought, oh, is this kind of Homeland Security, very buttoned down, very militaristic, secretive. But now I don't know what they've done. This isn't Star Trek.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a hub for lesbian space witches.
Oh, for sure.
The end of it.
They have lesbian space witches in there. They're definitely in there. They have the coven.
There was potential here for something with Section 31. The problem was, since they introduced it into Star Trek Discovery, it's been the worst kept secret in space, right? Like a clandestine group, but everybody knows about them.
Right.
It's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
It could have been an interesting show because you see, this is where they're not thinking of Star Trek correctly. And I really don't want to get bogged down in Star Trek, but it's like, all you have to do is you do the normal type of stuff, like we were saying, like Picard or a TOS type a show. But if you're going to do a show like Section 31, that's when you get to show the seedier, grittier side of Star Trek, right? You get to see the more underground stuff. You get to see the people who are doing the things that the other people don't do to be able to keep that peace, right? Like, that's your pitch. That's your show, right? It's the people who have to do the things that the other people wouldn't dream of doing, because otherwise the peace doesn't get kept between everybody, that kind of a thing.
Well, the part of the fun of Star Trek, which these people have completely forgotten also, especially with Strange New Worlds, because all you need to do, and I this is something that you realize when my dad was talking about World War II, is he was involved in a story that was not big enough or important enough or on the right side to be written down to be canon as part of the many story or the few stories that eventually merged out of World War II. And one of the interesting things talking to my dad about it is that there were tens of thousands of small stories out of World War II that we will never hear about, but many of them are really interesting. And so, so Star Trek doesn't have to be linear. It can be a flat pancake. And one of the things I found irritating is that, abandoning even the look and feel of TOS. I think you can create another ship in another part of the galaxy that has a different mission that kind of looks like the TOS ship, but is clearly updated instead of having that cellophane, monitors wiggling in the air.
There's a way of doing it that makes it look realistic.
It's they make it curvilinear a bit and they modernize it. But the idea, it should look of its time. Just so that it's real, and then you can add all the technology that you want to make it that we could come up with that makes it more futuristic. Part of the problems with making Star Trek too far out is that I don't think we could conceive of certain things that far out. I don't think we can make up gadgets and I mean, even to the point where we know the Starship Enterprise would probably all be voice activated through AI. I mean, there would not be any helms person, right?
No.
Well, any science fiction is, of course,
no, but this is what I was getting at,
today.
Paul. And I think Andre might agree with me on. Here's the thing that Star Trek has that they haven't figured out yet, that they could corner the market on. That this is something I think that is gonna, and I've been seeing a trend. And I think it's going to be the next, I'm not going to say it's going to be the next big thing, but it's definitely going to be the next trendy thing. And that is retrofuturism.
Yeah. Well,
and Star Trek could
what I'm talking about.
Perfectly into that 60s retrofuturism. Like you just said, you could still make it look realistic, but have that feel of the old 60s series. Because we see all these, it's not every single day I see Nightmare on Elm Street, but it's done in the 50s. Star Trek, but it's done in the 50s. Star Wars, but it's done in the 50s. I think was the first one that somebody did. They've been pumping these videos out on YouTube, and that tells me it kind of reminds me of the steampunk movement from a few years back and the cyberpunk movement, right? But this is now a retrofuturism, and Star Trek could totally come out with that, totally bank on that, and you have the younger kids that would kind of jump on it because it's kind of the pop culture thing, and you have the adults that are between our ages that we're going to be into it because that's the way we remember it from when we were kids. You can bring out a whole line of retro feeling toys and other goodies. Like they're missing an opportunity here. I don't know.
I'm not even talking about retro. I mean, the fact is,
well,
I am though. I think they should embrace it.
Yeah, and someone who does. That's actually the one good thing that Marvel has going from their Comic-Con presentation, as we'll get to here right now. The Fantastic Four will be set in an alternate
retro
Earth
future
in the 60s, retrofuturism. So that's the one thing they actually have going for them. That
I agree.
If they can get that right, that actually might be something. But culture, I take it we were done with the box office, so we can move on to Comic-Con.
Yeah, we've been doing the super chats actually, Andre.
Yeah, exactly. That's I just double.
So we got a gifted membership from J Rex. We just got on a Star Trek rant there. Packing Proton sends in 5 and says, "Why did I think the Dr. Doom mask looked like Doomcock?"
Kind of did.
A little bit.
Well, to be fair though,
Doomcock is based on Dr. Doom.
Looks like Doom's mask, and now when you have seen more of Doomcock, it's going to be very easy to think that any Doom mask is going to look like Doomcock. So, in their defense, that particular thing, that's a matter of familiarity, and you're right now more familiar with Doomcock. So I don't blame you, but I can't fault them either for that thing.
And then Tommy Review sends in 10 smackaroos and says, "Hail Midnight's Edge, Deadpool 3 was very, very good. I loved how it made fun of Disney and the audience, and they pander to. Also, Tom, Walmart has the OG TMNT figures with added articulation. I just bought all 4 turtles." Yeah, my Walmart sucks and didn't get any of these things. And I already spent too much money this month on Deadpool stuff, and I shouldn't. So I'm going to be eating hot dogs for the rest of the month. But yeah, no, luckily
a salad instead.
I could try, but salad's expensive, Andre. Do you know how much salad is?
Fine, beef then. Chicken.
What do you think's in hot dogs?
Oh boy. Let's see.
Parts of them.
Fine, but it's the parts of them that are not in the animal itself.
Here's the difference. Three chicken breasts cost you like $10. A pack of hot dogs costs you like $1.30.
Okay, you know what? Get the three chicken breasts and do intermittent fasting. There, done. I just helped you.
Except for I'll probably die in my sleep, but okay.
You'll be fine.
Anyway, Yellow Flash was generous enough to pick me up a set of those, and he's sending them off to me, I guess. So
nice.
Yeah, it was nice of him. So yeah, unfortunately, my Walmart sucks anymore. They don't get anything. Not that I could afford it, even if they did. Packing Proton says Starfleet Academy has Robert Picardo. I like the idea of that, but not from Kurtzman or current Paramount. Oh, yay. Isn't he is it like the real person, or because if he's a hologram, he's too old to play the hologram now?
Well, who cares? given who this is from, who cares about anything in it? It's not. It's going to be awful. So I hope it's nothing like anything else. So,
and Douglas Nelson has been here for 38 months. Thank you so much, Doug. How you been, buddy? Tennille sends in a $5 super chat. Says we've got a nice contrast between success and anti-success with Deadpool and the opening ceremony, respectively. Yeah, Six just sent me some story about that in the background. I don't know if we're going to be getting into that too much, but yeah, that was quite the affair this last weekend here. I don't know if you're paying attention to that at all, Paul, but I'm assuming you'd probably do something for appalling news on
that. Maybe one day.
It is appalling news. I mean, that's the problem is NBC's been nabbing anybody who's been showing the video of it, but
oh, that's because it's like the Olympic Committee or whoever are the ultimate rights holders. They are the ones that have been nabbing everyone that's showing the video.
Well, you know what? Each to their own. What can I say?
And look at Six here. She's being a little investigative reporter. She looked up one of the individuals that's responsible for this thing. And she's a showrunner, actually, for shows on Apple TV. And she has a number of other projects. Oh, wow. But they're in the concept and discussion stage and have yet to be greenlit, according to this. So, interesting. Her name is Fanny Herrero. So there you go. So here's somebody to keep an eye on.
Yeah, she did a French sitcom, according to this article, and then she got the Olympic opening ceremonies.
So basically just like it is here in Hollywood.
Right.
So thank you for that update, Six. We appreciate that. So yeah, that thing was like I said, I don't know if we're necessarily going to get into that or not, but yeah. We got Gavatron here who sends in 5 Canadian, says, I'm starting to wonder if most of the Marvel audience are over 18 males. Could we say it's an adult franchise at this point? For the most part, I mean, I think the demographic I've seen that was the biggest that went to Deadpool and Wolverine, correct me if I'm wrong, culture, was the 15 to 24 male demographic, I believe.
Oh yeah, they were heavily dominant, but we haven't gotten like drill downs on what all of that would be.
No, we haven't got the full breakdowns yet, but that was like the number, as far as I could tell from the article I read, they said that was the big audience. So
yeah, it's pretty impressive. I mean, when you look at how it all kind of stacks up, it's definitely dominated by males, in their their young adulthood. So, and that's just the way it's going to be.
I think this movie does have a lot of crossover, though. That's why it's so popular right now.
Yeah.
And then we got PD's Zed, who sends in £2, if I'm saying that right. Says, saw Deadpool in IMAX Saturday AM, 10 people in the cinema. What? That doesn't even sound right.
That's weird.
Especially for an IMAX. Like, I mean, I can understand. See, like, I went to see it in 3D, and there was, like, probably 20 people in the theater altogether. But it was also like the third showing of all, like they basically shut down every other movie except for Deadpool and Wolverine and Twisters. And I think Inside Out too, but I don't think anybody was going to Inside Out too. Cause like, as I was standing in line going through it, there was like one other pair of old ladies that were going to see Twisters. Otherwise everybody else was there to see Deadpool and Wolverine. And there was like a 3, a 3:30 and a 4:00 show. And I went to the 3:30 3D show. So if that tells you how they staggered them out. Everybody else was going to the standard showings and at the 3 and the 4:00. I bet you those theaters were packed, but I didn't. Yeah, mine was about half packed.
Well, and it still has just huge numbers. Even if they only did get 3 of 4 quadrants.
I've seen so many different reports on it, but all I can say to people who are saying like I'm in an empty theaters is probably because this is because it's an IMAX at 10 a.m. in the AM probably. And everybody else is already going to the cheaper screenings because IMAXs aren't cheap. Same thing with like, the other formats that are not standard.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at a 60-40 split between men and female, If you're looking for the fact that it basically appealed to all age groups, despite targeting 18 to 34, I mean this film is a lot more wide open than we would have expected. I never would have expected this kind of broad appeal.
You know what's funny is I read a couple of religious reviews of this, and one of them was so hilarious because you could tell the reviewer enjoyed the film, but they couldn't say they did. Yeah, I bet you get a kick out of it too, Paul.
Well, here's something else for you to grind on. 45% of all tickets purchased were in some form of top end form, premium formats. People paid.
That's
more.
why I'm surprised that it was empty for an IMAX. But
yeah. I mean, people paid more to see it in IMAX and in 3D. I mean, the average ticket, in those higher ends is about $18 or so, or a little more. And you have people signing up for, more unique experiences. It's one of those things when you look at the business, you're like, okay, we can offer this across all of the different tools and it's going to play to these people differently. And the premium format screens are where they want you. And that's also where the theaters want you. And that's also where, they make the most amount of money. So I can't imagine, not leaning into that a whole lot, but, it's pretty wild. I mean, when you looking at over $440 million, they did something right.
And they're selling out of all the popcorn buckets and stuff too, from what I've been hearing.
Yeah, you can't find them now. I think most people went at 11 in the morning on Thursday and just kind of bought them all out of them. So,
well, and I mean, I've been hearing how these are actually like a pretty big deal for the theaters. Like they're making them some nice side change.
Oh yeah. But when
basically, this movie, Deadpool, is not just saving Marvel right now in this moment. It's also single-handedly saving theaters by giving them even extra spare change.
Well, and another movie that did that also this year, Andre, and I'm sure you did a video about it, Culture, was Inside Out, or not Inside Out, Despicable Me 4.
Yes.
They were selling a lot of merchandise.
Their merchandise movements were incredible. That's a lot of theaters were reporting it.
My local theater has that much still, but I need Deadpool merch. Nope, that was first night and it was gone.
Yeah, but it's amazing. I mean, they were touting the fact, and again, this is theaters that are promoting merchandise sales. That tells you something, right? They're actually moving this stuff.
And I tell you, I mean, I think this could be the future of helping films that need a boost. Like I think it could have fixed Horizon. I mean, look at that. Don't you want a Big Chief Pop'em corn bucket with real butter tears? Come on, Paul. This was for you.
I don't get any fancy buckets up here in Canada.
Oh, come on. At least you would probably appreciate that joke, didn't you, Script?
It was all right.
Oh, come on.
I mean, it's a confection merchandise.
It's juvenile.
That was hilarious.
I think popcorn buckets are weird. I just prefer the old fashioned, the paper, simple cardboard.
They're definitely a trend. They're not going to stick around.
Any popcorn bucket that you can't put an erection in, that you ask your girlfriend to keep, reaching for popcorn, is no good.
Well, that's why most of these have the little rubber holes on them, I think.
Yeah, but on the wrong side.
True. That's a good point. We need them on the other side.
You need it there. Yeah, oh, you got that one too.
I did. I got this one.
Wow.
And this is why I'm not gonna be able to afford to eat anything this month. And I got this one.
Oh wow. Jeez.
And I got the cup.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm finding interesting through this entire Disney Marvel strangeness is that no one has does Disney secretly hate the success of Deadpool so much, which I think I've already answered the question. That internally, I think there's an awful lot of flying monkeys internally at Disney that wanted the movie to die because they don't really care about Disney's financials at all. They'd rather it collapse, but it's not going to happen. On the other hand, I don't hear talk about Disney hiring Sean Levy, who is a very successful producer and director who's done more than this Deadpool. He also worked on Stranger Things, right? I mean, this person is a talented individual how come we're not hearing, Disney, hiring Ryan Reynolds' production team just to come up with something different that doesn't star him?
Oh, because that threatens their power.
Yes.
Well, yeah, that obviously that's true. But if you're trying to make something good and you're trying to get somebody with I think, a better track record than the Russos, because the Russos outside of
Marvel don't have a very good track record.
No, and the everything, something everywhere, all the time, which they were involved in. I don't know how much they were involved in that.
I think they were able to get Michelle Yeoh. That's how they were involved.
Oh, I see. So the point is, if I was taking this whole business seriously, I would say, look, we're not going to do any more Deadpools. We're done with that. And I would probably hazard a guess that even Ryan Reynolds would be happy to not do another Deadpool. I mean, they'll leave it on a high note. But I mean, Sean Levy, I mean, what a talented person he is. Why aren't they, like, as you said,
it is power. Because again, if we go back in time a few years, James Gunn was kind of the golden boy over at Marvel. He did something that threatened their power in two ways. First, he made some tweets that got people upset, and then Alan Horn did something he shouldn't have done, which is he got rid of him. Marvel couldn't fix that mistake, and Warner Brothers scooped him up because Warner Brothers is, and by and large, is still kind of a creative, encouraging business. They don't think a director or a producer that comes into the fold is going to threaten them as a studio, where Disney is the opposite. Right. Disney is a control freak. And so when you have someone that makes a lot of money on, say, one film like a Deadpool and Wolverine, they're looking at this as, oh, if we bring this guy in, he's going to take over our company and change what we're trying to do, because he's got the money on his side with regards to box office sales and marketing, whereas we just have the brand of Disney, and we think the brand of Disney is more important than the one film of money that makes a lot of money here. So yes, we'll get as much money as we can out of him, but we'll always keep him at arm's length, because if we bring him in any closer, he's going to take those ideas that made his brand worth valuable, and he's going to change the Disney brand, and we cannot change the Disney brand the way we see it as it is now. The changes that we're making are Disney, from our perspective, honor what we're supposed to be doing at Disney. The stuff that he's doing does not fit with the stuff that we do at Disney. We don't do R-rated stuff under the Disney banner. We don't do crude comedy like this. We don't do blood and gore like this. That's not part of the Disney brand. We're happy to extend it with regards to Marvel for this one time only. But if we bring that in there, all of our movies have the potential to go this way, and we will no longer be honoring, quote unquote, the Disney brand that we think we've been honoring for the past 8 years. That's basically the attitude out there. It's not about money anymore. It's now about power, control, narrative, branding, and everything else. And
yeah, I'm very glad you brought that up, because to me, I don't see any signs that that they are happy with this movie being so successful. On the contrary, I think that just like Alex Kurtzman was with Picard season 3, suddenly getting more ratings, anything with his stuff, that it was a threat, an annoyance, that they would rather just have it go away. You think that's part of the reason why the success here was completely undermined by the comic book panel, which didn't mention Deadpool even once in conjunction with the future of Marvel. Instead, they doubled down with all that bullshit Kevin Feige has been doing, most notably Captain America, New World Order. That was the thing they sold, that this is the future of the MCU.
Well, before we get into that part, there is the rumor flying around that Deadpool and Wolverine will play a role, obviously, in Secret Wars.
Oh, they will obviously play a role. In fact,
I'm almost positive that one little bit, without getting into spoilers, that's in Deadpool and Wolverine is something that's going to happen in that.
But wouldn't it have been nice to try to capitalize on the success of the movie by throwing it a bone of you'll be seeing more of these guys going forward?
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I'm thinking the reason for that is we are going to, but they're keeping it under wraps, but it's only probably for specific things. And Lord knows the type of relationship these guys have right now. But I agree with you guys. They are not boasting about the success of this film like they would have, say, any other. If the Marvels had done this, it'd be the biggest movie of all time already they'd be talking about. So again, I don't disagree with you that this was not something they wanted, because this goes against every damn thing they've been trying to work towards for Marvel. But at the same time, that almost kind of does lead us into the Comic-Con stuff, because I don't think we've heard the last of this. I think we're going to get some more announcements. I just don't know if anything was set in stone yet necessarily, because I don't know if they knew that this movie was going to be this big of a success. Because as Culture said, it's overperforming and outperforming everybody's expectations except for mine. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, I was the only one to know. I'm sure other people knew like me, but like the industry, Disney, nobody expected this movie to blow the box office out the water like this. I would say it's probably done about 100 million more than they anticipated it was going to do.
Probably has, but I think it also comes down to the fact that this had been teased since the ending of Deadpool 2. So you have all those years of anticipation.
Which is why I said it's done so well, and other people I think have underestimated that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Carry on script.
Well, yeah, I mean, you've got the anticipatory market into it as well. You've had, what was it, 2018 was the last one. So you've got basically 6 years of teasing, fans clamoring, wanting to see this together. And then they make the announcement a couple of years ago, and that just started the hype train up. And now it's paying off hugely. And it's a good thing, because even though I think the movie was like pretty stupid and silly, there's a lot of fun aspects to it. And there's a lot of charm coming from the characters and the weight coming from Hugh Jackman in this. And the cameos were not disposable cameos, surprisingly.
Right.
So yeah, it hits a lot of, it doesn't hit every beat that a normal like MCU movie would hit at its prime, but it hits enough of them that it definitely gets people riled up and excited, because again, Deadpool is not supposed to be the serious angle of Marvel characters. It's supposed to be the schlocky fun, abusive in comedy and gore, gratuity nature of a film. So it fits exactly into what it's supposed to be. Like, it's not dishonest of what it's supposed to be. Whereas since post Endgame with a few exceptions in Spider-Man and Guardians of the Galaxies, the other Marvel films have not been authentic to what they're supposed to be.
I was just going to say that Ryan Reynolds looked really bad in this movie. He really aged.
Really?
No, that was a joke. He was covered in prosthetics and a mask. Cool. How do you know whether he's aged or not?
Well, because he played Nice Pool in it too.
Well, actually, that Nice Pool, I think, was the guy from the hairdresser from what's that show? The Gay Makeover Show.
I don't know.
Queer Eye for a Straight Guy. I think he was channeling him.
Oh, probably.
Oh, I was gonna say, I'm like, no, that's totally Ryan Reynolds. I don't know what the hell.
No.
Yeah, I got you.
He was channeling that character. I went, okay, he's making fun of the hairdresser from Queer Eye. Anyway,
possibly. I think I know the one you're even talking about.
Yeah, script. He's always right. What can I say?
Not always right.
and the thing is too, Ryan Reynolds knows how to inject fun into the stuff that he does. And yes, they had that initial teaser with him and Hugh Jackman, and they play off really well together. Mm-hmm. And it came out in the movie. It was possibly one of the best marketing campaigns of all time that Disney won't be able to learn from either. Forget about learning from the movie. Learn from the entire experience, starting from those initial teasers.
Well, it's not only that, the end credit scene of Deadpool 2 literally has a repurposed and reshot scene from X-Men Origins Wolverine, where Deadpool shoots his other self and says, Hugh, you're going to want to come into the next one. And, it's going to be huge. It's going to be great. We're going to all love it. And, I mean, it's literally just prophetic at this point.
Right.
But that's kind of what really did it off, because this has been a running gag since the initial leaked test footage of Deadpool back in 2014, 2015. It has always been Ryan Reynolds wants to do something with Hugh Jackman again because of their horrible time. Even though they had a wonderful time with themselves and with the cast, they had a horrible time making X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Right.
And they're like, well, it wouldn't be great if we did something good.
Well, not just that, the fans wanted to see them together for that reason, like you just said. The only other character I can think of that people want to see teamed up with Deadpool is basically Spider-Man, which I still think is a possibility. But that being said, we do have some actual news on this stuff to get into.
Hold on 1 second. Deadpool also went into the DC universe too. Let's not forget.
Yeah.
See, I mean, he is great. Frankly, I'm I was sad that he killed off his wife, but I would love to see a team up with, Lady Deadpool and him. That was
Nobody died.
very, very throwback.
Oh, well,
There was only one that died.
Only a couple of Deadpool died. That one didn't. Lady Pool didn't die. Lady Pool is played by a stunt double, but voiced by Blake Lively.
His wife, yeah.
Wasn't her body.
No, it was not her body.
It was just the guy But that being said, I thought Andre brought up an interesting bit in his. Was it your review or your other video? I think it was your other video, where they'd be stupid not to go back and do like a Deadpool takes on the Marvel Universe type of movie, because you have the whole thing where basically Thanos makes it to where Deadpool can't die, even though they retconned that in 2016.
Yeah, that was the other video, which is now approaching 100,000 views.
Yeah, I thought that would be a brilliant idea. And you know what? Since they changed the original, because it all kind of connects with the Lady Death thing, since they changed all that initially anyway, it would be hilarious if like he keeps fucking with Thanos and Thanos finally just like, you know what? I'm gonna make it so you can't die, so you annoy everybody else kind of after I'm dead. But no,
it's
they
a
would
prequel waiting to happen.
Yeah. Which kind of ostensibly makes him Marvel Jesus in that respect.
Marvel genius. Jesus, yeah.
Which is why a lot of the religious people are getting freaked out about this movie. And I'm like, look, the thing is, you got to look at it like with Archie Bunker, right? It's Deadpool saying it. It's not anybody else telling him he's Marvel Jesus. That's Deadpool trying to make himself more important than he really is.
I want to know how come only British people can be bad guys.
I know, that Paradox dude.
Well,
Paradox and
Loki.
No, and the woman.
There's a bad guy in this movie that everybody is overlooking, though. There's one bad guy in the movie that everybody's overlooking, and that is Disney. Disney is the reason this is happening, because they killed 20th Century Fox. They created the problem to begin with. And they're never really mentioned outright like they're the villain, but if you think about it, that's why all this crap is happening, because they killed Fox.
Well, Paradox, it's in a sense a Disney executive.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Much.
Paradox, in a sense, is Kevin Feige.
Yes, and he has no idea what he's doing or why he's doing it, and we don't understand it, and that's why we're going through all this chaos. It's
and the funny thing is,
yeah,
I now fully believe that the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that was also Kevin Feige. No, I'm serious, because I read like an analysis at the time. I was like, this is intriguing, but it can't be right. Where basically someone read into it that here you have Kevin, that the High Evolutionary, he's basically looking for a creature with like intelligence and spark and creativity, because he doesn't have it on its own. He can do everything else, but he doesn't have that. So
he's trying to make it.
He's trying to create it, and then he lucks upon Rocket Raccoon, which would be James Gunn in this equation. But
he's leading his own team at the end with new characters.
What James Gunn can do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's a very strong allegory to a situation.
And that's exactly what we see is going on right now. And that actually ties really nice into this year's Comic-Con. Big Comic-Con announcement. To me, that is the High Evolutionary. That is Paradox desperately trying to make an announcement after failing in everything they do for years. But now suddenly they got it figured. They're going to bring back Tony Stark, or rather, they're going to bring back Robert Downey Jr., but not as Tony Stark, the role everyone wants to see him in. So yeah, let's see how that is going to go. Let's get into that.
Sure. You didn't want to get through some of these more super chats before we do
that? Well,
or?
Let's the ones that lead up to it.
I was gonna say, well, like these ones that we already talked about, Star Trek stuff, like Doomed, huh? Says Kurtzman said he couldn't greenlight any new shows and it was beyond his control. But then they announced a new comedy. Kurtzman killed Legacy on purpose.
Yes, because it threatened him.
Yeah.
The studio wanted it. Kurtzman said no. Terry went to Marvel.
That's
So
exactly
he's still.
what happened.
So even though they had that deal, he's still stuck with that 5 shows and that's it deal, or what?
Apparently, it seems that way. I mean, the
Looks
reason
like
Section 31 isn't a show and a movie is
Yeah.
2 parts for contract with Michelle Yeoh, and second part is because they probably already spent the money before they were told that they can't do it. Before Michelle Yeoh's schedule blew up to the point where she couldn't commit to a show, so now they're just passing it off as a film, streaming film, which if it didn't have the Star Trek brand on it, would probably look like an okay science fiction thing.
Yeah.
And then so now he's got Strange New Worlds, the Starfleet Academy, and Prodigy is kind of running out. Lower Decks is running out. And I don't know if he's got another one yet. So as far as I know, he's down to 2 shows that I know of, as opposed to the 5. So he's got room for any.
Well, I also wonder if there's things he has to get done before the merger goes through too. That's the other question.
But the interesting thing, though, is that there was one thing that actually had fan enthusiasm and interest behind it, and that's the one thing that he killed.
Yeah, that would be Star Trek Legacy.
Yeah. Dearest sends in 5 and says young reaction channels watch Star Trek. They generally love it, mostly because today's entertainment is shit. There's big opportunity right now. Well, the other problem with those young reaction channels is 9 times out of 10, they don't like the original Trek. So all that is like just the few new fans they created on this garbage. And how many people is that actually? Like, Star Trek is so unpopular that we can't even be bothered to do videos on it when we get bigger scoops now than we ever did back in the day when we were ripping into them.
That's weird though, because whenever I get the recommendations of first time watches of Star Trek, it's the original series, and they've got like 300,000 views.
Well, I'm just saying that's the people that like this garbage. There's no way they're fans of the OG shit, really. I'm sure there's some crossover, but not very much at all.
Well, I just may suggest to all of you that Star Trek is very dead. So I don't know that there's much comeback anytime soon.
Not very dead.
Well, I mean, I think the point is I can understand a generation of people liking this Star Trek because I've encountered them.
Mm-hmm.
The point is it's not Star Trek.
That's what I was getting at. Exactly.
So I don't have any issues with it. I mean, yes, I have issues. I'm going to turn off the internet until people bow to my whim. No, I mean that's stupid. But it's so completely detached that it's not worth arguing. It's not our Star Trek. It's not the original Star Trek. It's a variant. Let the kids have it if they want it. But unfortunately, the main problem is that they're watching it on their parents' ticket. It's the parents who are paying for Paramount Plus, not them. So Paramount is not benefiting financially from the audience they've managed to
I was about to say it doesn't help if there's some people that like it when there's not enough of them to make this a profitable venture.
They turned it what was basically okay. Was it a cult IP? No, it was bigger than a cult IP, but was it as big as something like Marvel or Star Wars? Oh hell no! What they turned what was a really nice.
It was a stable IP. It was
stable 4-quadrant IP. Yeah, go ahead, script.
Well, just to help out you, it was a stable 4-quadrant IP that always made its money back because they knew the expense threshold, they knew the return threshold, they knew what the metric was, they knew what they could do. Their budgets adjusted with inflation and actually ended up always being a benefit. Like there was never a Star Trek show, especially since the Berman era, that didn't make money. Because the original series, the reason it was canceled twice and renewed once is because it had a good audience, but it wasn't making the money to warrant the expense because it was still a very expensive show to make at that time, despite, from our current perspective, the effects doesn't look, as polished as we're used to. So that's one of the things that made Paramount very happy with Star Trek is that it was always under budget, always on time, always made money. And Moonves was the only idiot that didn't understand how it worked and why it worked.
Wasn't there quite a few shows in that specific era, like Batman and TOS, that once they changed the demographic how they was Nielsen around then, or was it a different?
No,
company? I
Nielsen
can't
was
remember.
around
Nielsen's
then.
been around forever.
Yeah, it was whatever they did. They changed how they registered certain demographics, and because it's been said time and time again now that if things were different than like they are now, both Batman and TOS never would have been canceled.
Yes. Well, actually, Batman, the only reason it didn't maintain it is because they destroyed the studio before NBC was going to buy it.
That actually was going to go on. Yeah, you're right.
That was going to go on because even though it dipped a little bit in its third season with the introduction of Batgirl, it was only just because there was another, I think it was Wild Wild West was taking off a little bit more.
They were even going to do a Batgirl spinoff. The pilot episode, I think, is on the Blu-ray.
I think what killed Batman, what killed
Mm-hmm.
Batman on ABC was they did 2 a week. It became so successful that they did two shows a week.
Yep.
Well, the third season is only one.
The third season went to 1 because there was another show they wanted to put in that slot, and that's what caused the ratings to decline because they aggregated the ratings weekly as opposed to episode by episode. But NBC saw through that and be like, well, it's still high ratings for one show a week. They were going to do that, but ABC, it was ABC at the time, I think.
ABC owned Batman.
Yep.
Not only that, you didn't have the merchandising like you do now, because that's where the other thing I know is like Star Trek merchandising didn't take off until the reruns.
Until the 70s,
Yep. And by that time you had Planet of the Apes and stuff like that. But anyway, moving on, Sandra Hammerslag sends in a member milestone or member chat and says one of the most popular episodes on Enterprise was in the Mirror Darkly episodes.
Yeah, season 4.
Yeah, and what happened there is basically they essentially travel to the future to one of the Enterprise or original series era starships that was lost from the original series. So basically they encounter what is for them future technology, meaning it's a retro futurism episode in which the technology of the 60s actually looks advanced from the point of view of Enterprise, a series made in the early 2000s. Cool episode.
There's a way you can do it. And I mean, like there's that show Star Trek Continues, which has managed to be popular and continue to use the same style as TOS in a way.
Yeah, well, I mean, in many ways, it's like the episode where the Starship Enterprise ended up on present day Earth, and they had to take a astronaut up into the Enterprise. That was a phenomenal.
I remember that one, yeah. And then Tennille says, I think we're getting bogged down on Star Trek. Importantly, though, hey, look at that 32 months. Jesus, that's how we get old. Yes, it is, Tennille. And then Dearest says, I'm right. Thank you. Trek just needs one good show in the spirit of Star Trek. Guys like Metalis Burnett and Mark Zicree is what you need. Yeah. Or Robert Meyer Burnett would be great. I know you mean the other guy, but yeah. Satan's Retribution sends in 35 South African rands and says Kurtzman Trek is the acolyte of Star Trek. Not one frame produced by Kurtzman, including Picard, can be continued as canon. Scrap it back to 2005. Well, look, my point is you take the one thing that was popular and you do another season of that, build off of that popularity. Whether you can get Metalis back or not, that's a whole nother scenario. Either way, you get people who actually like Star Trek involved, brand ambassadors, right? People like script, like Paul, other people that have worked on the show before. You get a nice mix, right? People who appreciate the show and understand the show, know the ins and outs. You got Paul there for your gear porn. He'll make sure you get your gear porn right.
Oh yeah, I'm. That would be the very first meeting. Is what new stuff can we invent that fits this time?
Yeah,
and absolutely, I would do that.
Yeah, we got one more here before we get down into the main topics here. Then we're gonna put a pin in the super chats for now. Tennille says, Paul, the only way I'd maybe accept Twisters Part 3, which required previous knowledge of Ahsoka, is if Tornado sucked off Rosario Dawson's clothes. We're just lucky that the Twisters weren't non-binary in this.
I like Rosario Dawson.
Who doesn't?
You know what? She was one of the reasons to actually watch the show, but she was so hamstrung
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
Two Tired
Docile.
Two Tired sends in 5 says Twisters used the Hallmark formula but lacked the Hallmark kiss. That's why it was enjoyable to watch, but disappointed me and hubby so close. Yeah, I guess that was a Spielberg call, and I don't understand that one. But yeah.
Well, that's what made West Side Story flop, was the kiss in it.
Spielberg is not even, what the hell is he thinking anyway? Anyway, Connor Dorian says the budget for Twisters was 155 million. Yeah, thanks for that. We found that out. You probably sent that in right about the same time, but we appreciate it. And yeah, I appreciate the support as well. And then Tennille also points out that 6 makes good point that pretzels are good. Yes, they are.
Pretzels are good.
Pretzels are good.
I like mine. I like mine at the theater with a little mustard. That's the best way to.
I like cheese a little bit better than mustard.
What? No, the cheese? That's not even real cheese. That's like fake cheese food.
I know, but just shut up. Tennille also says maybe the real Doomcock was the RDJs we made all along the way. I kind of get what you mean there, Tennille. Now on that note, let's talk about Dr. Doolittle, because that was the big.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr.?
Yeah, I like Dr. Doolittle.
Tom has to give me credit for making the initial germ that got you there.
Sort of, and then you laughed. That's what solidified.
That was funny.
So yeah, so we got a whole lot of nothing out of Comic-Con except for this, and this was kind of not even that big of a surprise, because this was another one of those like Luke Skywalker type rumors that I just couldn't believe. And
let's be honest, we all heard the rumor in advance, but no one of us believed it because it was just so effing stupid.
And did this end up kind of meh? Really?
Oh, this is probably one of the worst Comic-Cons I think I've observed in a long time.
No, I'm just talking about this one rollout.
Oh, it was underwhelming.
I mean, people cheered.
I'm sure it was cool for those in the audience, obviously, for those who were there. That's why you get the chairs. So for them, I'm sure it was a fantastic experience getting to see Robert Downey Jr. live and everything like that, being there on stage when history is made, thinking, oh, I wasn't here when Loki was on the stage, but hey, I'm sure this will go down in history as well, which I'm sure it will, but for very different reasons. Of course, there's going to be chairs right there in the room, but that doesn't mean that what's there in the room is going to be universally celebrated. I mean, just consider this, that while this was happening, while in this thing where they spoke about basically how the Kang dynasty, that whole movie, that is no more. They spoke about how incredibly important the next Captain America movie is going to be, how awesome Thunderbolts is going to be after that, which it isn't. And then the big thing was this reveal right here, that Robert Downey Jr. is back. Not as Tony Stark, which is the role that everyone wants to see him in, but as Doom instead. To me, that's kind of like, those that love and appreciate the Pink Panther will understand. Like, just imagine an alternate reality where Peter Sellers is alive and he announced that he is returning to the franchise, to the Pink Panther, not as Clouseau, but as Dreyfus. That's what this is to me.
But don't forget, this announcement was not in a vacuum. It started off with the Russo brothers coming back to Marvel.
Mm-hmm. True, and it also started out with the weekend when you really want to hype up the Deadpool and Wolverine, which is what any sane company would do, were it not for that these are the people that say, oh shit, Ryan Reynolds is a threat to us.
No, this is way more important to them.
This is just, to me, this is a huge overcorrection, right? This is the desperate ex-girlfriend doing every goddamn last thing she can to try and get you back on board. And it's overkill and it's done wrong. And I get it. This is going to end up being a little bit of a bait and switch here. So not to get too far ahead of myself, as I've said, we've been hearing about this rumor for a while. In fact, the Russos being on board is the more newer news than this is actually. This is just kind of like, are you serious?
This was a surprise to me.
No, we've been hearing that, well, to you it may have been, but we've been hearing that Robert Downey's going to be coming back. And not only that, the rumors started getting kind of like odd because they're saying, oh, but he's going to be coming back as Dr. Doom. And to me, and I tagged you in this on Twitter, and I don't know if you saw it, Script, but to me, this whole idea comes off as like fucking such grade school level, I think I'm clever in writing bullshit, because they're using this multiverse variant of Tony. He even said it. It's the first fucking thing he said. New mask, same task. So they're thinking they're being clever just because, Tony Stark, he runs around in an iron suit. Oh, Dr. Doom, he's got an iron face and he's like a scientist, kind of like, yeah, let's do that. Yeah, people won't, that'll be cool. Blah, blah. No, fuck you. The only way I think this is cool is if this was an actual reboot, and I'm talking complete 100% ground level reboot of the MCU. And this is your throwback to the OG MCU. And even then, I'd still be going, what I'm going to say now, you couldn't pick anybody better. I love Robert Downey Jr., but not as Dr. Doom. You have Mads Mikkelsen. You have Christoph Waltz. You have all these other great actors who could play this role.
Who would be good for this? Arnold.
Better than this.
Yeah, Arnold.
Well, you're under the assumption that this is going to be a variant of Tony Stark. We don't know that for sure.
That's the rumor. That was getting me to the other part of the rumor script, because this comes from WDW Pro and others.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the only place I've heard this.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the twist will be eventually, yes, he's going to be back as Tony Stark, and there's going to be a different Dr. Doom eventually. This is just a variant.
There's a story that came out, a comic book issue that came out after the Disney acquisition of Marvel. And it's a what if story, and it's called a Demon in an Armor. And what it is that Dr. Doom has actually mind swapped with the body of Tony Stark, and has
that could be too.
Tony Stark's mind, and he's trapped in Doom's body.
Why?
Because Doom wanted money because he doesn't have any. That's what a story.
What the fuck?
Well, stop. 1 second. I'm going to explain what the possibility is, because again, this is the Russo brothers. This is Kevin Feige Marvel. They don't adapt stuff that's pre 1985 when it comes to comic books. They adapt more current age stuff. What I suspect they're going to be doing is that Dr. Doom wants a certain level of power that he's restricted from doing outside of Latveria because of the Sokovia Accord sanctions, all those types of things. So he hatches some sort of plan where he manages to pluck Tony Stark out from time, take over his body, and basically try to live out and come back in a glorious another Phoenix Rising return after the snap, after all those things. He wasn't really dead. He was saved through his own ingenious technology and what have you. And now he is back, but it's really Doom. And it's basically how long can he maintain this disguise before Tony Stark, trapped in Doom's body, comes up with a plan and rescues himself and restores things back to normal. That is the most likely, the most interesting aspect that they'll do. I'm 90% sure that's going to be what they're trying to do here, because I don't think they will try to sell this as a variant of Tony, because they already know the stigma of the multiverse variants and how bad that is. They're going to try and find a way to make sure it's the original Tony Stark coming back, and that this is the bait and switch here. There is going to be an actor playing Victor Von Doom. It's going to be a face-off type of deal, Nick Cage, John Travolta type of stuff, and they're going to try and make it run for maybe this trilogy here, where the hero moment is that Iron Man as Tony Stark, as our Robert Downey Jr. returns, and we are now continuing with the MCU. And the only reason I suggest that is because RDJ said on Joe Rogan, only a year after he left the role, the only way he'd come back is if he does something with the role he's never done before. Playing a variant is still him playing Tony Stark, but he's never played a villain trapped in Tony Stark's body before. And I think that's one thing that will bring him in.
Instead of just straight up, this is an alternate Tony Stark who grew up in Latveria and is called Victor Von Doom, they decided to do this super duper convoluted thing where another Dr. Doom is mind control. You know what? That is so stupid that I believe it. Someone needs to fire Kevin Feige.
Than the other. Yeah, it's even fucking.
This is even worse. Yeah. This is even worse than I first thought. Holy hell! Yeah. Worse and worse. Please, someone needs to get Kevin Feige away from Marvel, because if this is their idea of saving, this is their big idea. This is the most thank you for that retelling script, and that was a great retelling from you, but just on a pure concept level.
More details.
This is some of the most stupid crap I've ever heard.
It's dumb, but it's also the only one that I think they can do that doesn't have the counter argument from Marvel fans being it's not the original Tony, because that's the one thing they have to avoid. They cannot have fans saying it's not the original Tony.
They're gonna kill it though. This is gonna kill.
Well,
even
it
more
could
so.
kill it, or I mean, again, the concept is ridiculous and silly, but it fits within Marvel because that's what Marvel does. It's also soap opera because that's also what Marvel does. The thing is, if they nail the execution, it will do exactly what Marvel needs. But it's a really high target to hit. Like it's a really high
how
target.
well has Marvel done with its execution the past 5 years?
Exactly, right?
Mhm.
But the thing is, if they get Marcus and McFeely back, who wrote a bunch of the Marvel movies that were successful, and they can stick the landing on that, it's better likely for them because they're actually really good writers. They wrote 9 of the most successful Marvel films, excluding Avengers and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Did they come up with this concept?
I
Or
don't
did
think so.
Kevin Feige or someone come up with the concept and said,
No.
here, make it work?
It sounds like it's coming from, as Script said, because Six sent me this in the background. Actually, Robert Downey Jr. has talked about this specific comic. It comes off of a storyline from Civil War II. It started in 2016. So it's modern bullshit fucking Marvel.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Like since
It's the same year they
acquired
killed
Marvel.
Deadpool, ironically, but yeah.
Well, like the What If story came out in 2011, so that's just after Disney kind of got their hooks into Marvel, and then their Civil War II aspect, all those things they tie in together. It's going to be, I strongly suspect it's going to be a Freaky Friday thing where somehow Tony Stark's body was, plucked out of time, or it was taken, and Pepper Potts had to hide the fact that it was taken. Which burns her character a little bit.
Well, we're hearing that this
And then he was
version
healed
comes
and
from the
then mind
60s,
swap.
so I don't know.
You heard? Sorry,
It's
what?
different. It's an alternate universe, and it's from the 60s. That's one thing. The only thing we really know.
That I know that for Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be introduced at the end of Fantastic Four: First Steps, leading into Doomsday.
Okay, listen. Here's what I would do. If Doom needed money, and because he's from that Romanian sort of Eastern European thing, I would have done an episode where he kind of turns into his version of Andrew Tate and does this MGTOW thing and then makes money online from men who are angry at women. And they show a buff version of Dr. Doom, but he still has his face mask on, right? See, that's what you do. You make it modern. Turn him into Andrew Tate. I see that and he'd have like super cars behind him.
Don't give them more ideas. It's bad enough as it is.
What, Paul?
Well, on the point of McFeely and Marcus, Toga Free sent in this earlier for $4.99. Says McFeely is writing Avengers 5 and 6. What happened with Marcus? Russo next movie Electric State must suck if they ran back to Marvel. Well, that's just it. The Russos haven't had the best of luck since Marvel, and Marvel hasn't had the best of luck since the Russos. But you were one of the first people, if not the first person, to point out, Script, that it doesn't effing matter if the Russos come back or not, if they still have the same fucking writing team they have for the last few years, because that's what they've been using on everything.
Yeah, McFeely and Marcus are a writing team. As far as I know, they haven't split up. Maybe it's just a delay from IMDb and some of the trades bringing in both their names. If they are going to be doing Avengers 5 and 6, I don't know. Because as far as I know, they're still a writing pair. They're still repped by the same team.
Because either way, in a roundabout way, going off of what you're kind of saying, because I didn't even know that storyline from Civil War II, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, the whole point I was getting around to is just this is going to be some roundabout, half-assed way of getting Tony Stark back into the MCU.
Yes, convoluted way to get him back into the MCU.
Yeah.
No, it is. Like whether it's they take his body or Dr. Doom switches his body from another universe and then heals the dead Tony Stark died in his universe in the 60s. He then swaps it with the one from Endgame, heals him up, takes his body, becomes Dr. Doom there because no one recognizes Tony Stark in that universe with the Fantastic Four, and then they bridge them all together in Secret War or something of that nature. Who knows? There's a lot. Again, comic books by and large, especially from the 80s to more recently, their stories have become way more convoluted, and it seems that Marvel is kind of going towards that direction now because they made a commitment in 2019, and then they saw the consequences of that commitment, and now they're trying to backtrack it. And again, it goes down to the main principle. I don't think Kevin Feige is dumb enough to not recognize the fact that you cannot bring Robert Downey Jr. to play a variant of Iron Man for the continuing. It has to be the original, because otherwise you're like, well, we're not seeing the same Iron Man that we saw in 2008. We have to. That's the guy. That's the face of Marvel. If we don't have him as him, we are then conveying to our audiences that this is an inauthentic Tony, and they don't want to do that. There's no way they can do that. So they have to play it with in another way, which would be a Doom body swap Freaky Friday thing.
Variant type of thing. But that's the thing, is we've already seen a like they've kind of set a principle for this already, right? Like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this isn't something they wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. We've already seen them bring in the other alternate version of what's his face in WandaVision. God dang it, the twin.
Quicksilver, yeah.
And then we also have, with Deadpool, I'm not going to get too deep into it, but we have had, let's say, at least one or two other people that have shown up in different variant versions of other characters show up there too. So I could see this as their ticket into how they could bring back these acts. See, I'm thinking of it a little bit different angle than you are, Script. This is just, to me, another way they can bring back these actors in ways they can possibly rework them back into their original characters. But I don't think they're just as concerned about having the original Tony back as you think they are. I think they'll just be happy just to have him in the MCU somehow, because that's where they're at. They're at this desperate stage right now. And this goes along with things we've been hearing from behind the scenes. And I heard it from another person now here this last weekend that, Kevin Feige's been licking his wounds. They know they got to right the ship. They're doing every desperate move they can to try and get the fans back on board, because guess what? They've realized they fucked everything up. They even say it in Deadpool, right? Like,
yeah, but to your point, I mean, all the cameos that you've mentioned on screen, especially the Quicksilver one, they've all been used as a disposable form of just a nod. They're not committed. They're not permanent within the MCU.
And that gets into
this
the other
thing
point
here with Downey. It's supposed to be permanent with the MCU.
Well,
so
that's just it.
They're going to go a different direction.
Those other characters were played in other films, in other universes, in other times. This is the first time we're having this, and this is why I don't think it works either way. No matter which way they're doing it, it's going to be confusing. It's stupid. It's gimmicky. It's jangling keys. It is. There's 100 ways you could have brought Robert Downey Jr. back into the mix, into the fold, without doing this. What pisses me off more so, and I want to get everybody's reaction who got to see it, that the Fantastic Four teaser thing we got to see out of there, if you got to see the leak, actually kind of got me excited. I'm like, okay, they're actually kind of going in a decent direction, and it made me wish that it was a ground zero reboot from there.
Yeah, I disagree with you completely on the ground zero reboot. I think that
Why? This shit is done. It's over with.
I mean, from your perspective and from a lot of people out there's perspective, absolutely. But from Marvel, it goes back to the fact that they've had 35 films. They can't abandon that track record with a reboot.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, but of course the problem is that they keep on making stupid decisions. I mean, if they would just listen to Ryan Reynolds here, if they would give him some more influence, I think that he could get them back on track instantly by just not following up on crap. But what they're doing, especially this convoluted thing where they're now going to use several things just to get Tony Stark back this super duper convoluted way, which is really not necessary when you can like a counterpoint to that. Like, I see where you're coming from, Script. Like, this is like nothing against like what you're saying, but from their point of view, the Hugh Jackman in this movie is illegitimate because he's a different Wolverine. The audience didn't seem to mind, and I think the audience would be thrilled to see the continued adventures of this particular Wolverine that we got in this movie, because he's still played by Hugh Jackman, and I would be far more successful to see his adventures continue than bringing in Tony Stark back from the dead by doing the super duper convoluted Freaky Friday thing with Doctor Doom. I mean, that sounds like some kind of crap that you do in a comic book run that you are then ashamed of and never mentioned again, just like one more day. This sounds like a live action $500 million production version of that.
And the beauty of the Deadpool thing with the variant on Wolverine, not to get too spoilery, is like, it shouldn't have worked, right? Like that Wolverine is the character that we bitch about constantly. It is It is the version of the character that failed. He's a failure. You know, we bitch how they always have our classic heroes fail. Well, the beauty of it though is they took that failure and they gave him a shot at possibly being a hero, right? Like that's the whole point of the film.
That's what they're all supposed to be. If you're dealing with a legacy hero, you want them start them at their lowest point so they can redeem themselves at the end. You don't want to make them a failure at the end.
That's the thing, though. Marvel doesn't do that anymore. Like this was a rarity, right? Like they normally want to make the men look inept and make the women, you know, shine high. Or the
fact that the movie was able to pull off resurrecting the classic mask.
And something that's never been on film before.
Oh, it was that.
Well, not only that, make it part of the plot. Not to get too spoilery, but yeah.
Well, it was that moment really that I felt the full weight of redemption for the character. Right. You know, and it's like because you've combined both, you know, the performance of the actor, you know, with the character in a way that we hadn't seen before. Very great depth to that. We've talked about it at length, Paul. But then at that moment when he actually dons the mask, the cowl, yeah, it was you know, kind of a completion of an arc that we'd been looking for 20 years.
And you know, again, no one should have been emotionally involved at that point. All he did was pull on that stupid cowl, but the audience melted.
Well, they made it part of the story, Paul. That's the other thing too. That's the beauty of it. That's what I was saying is. It added weight to it beyond just the fanboy element. And that's what I was trying to say about that's why I was also saying, I even think that this version of Wolverine, it was almost like, you know, Ryan and the writers were well aware of how they've been treating a lot of these male characters lately and male heroes, especially the legacy ones. And I believe that was the whole point of doing that version of this character.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And one of the interesting aspects of the writing, and I could be wrong, I'd have to look at, you know, these are just my memories of the Avengers, was I got the feeling that this was more true to life to what, when I read the comic books, the X-Men, and it felt the humor, the pathos was not surfacey. It wasn't like I liked the Avengers, but when in my mind I'm comparing these movies to this movie to the Avengers. The Avengers was just nothing but quippy stuff without any kind of real relationship between the characters. It was just all zing, 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 zing. This was much deeper, even though it was a sillier film and had less of a story in it. I think this was more true to what the comic books at their very best, for me at least, represented. And it actually made me think, wow, the Avenger films really weren't that particularly.
I agree with you, Paul. They made a big point of building up the relationships in this movie. And what they lack in story, they make up for in relationship and heart. Right? Yeah. This movie has a lot of heart. It has a lot of redemption. But to get back to where we were talking about with Fantastic Four, like I liked the look of the trailer they put out. I mean,
aren't they shooting Monday?
They've been shooting for a while now, obviously. But what's his face? Pedro is probably the worst part.
Pedro.
But I got to give him credit because he's a good actor and he's got that 1960s kind of talk down. Like, if you've seen the trailer, I know Andre, I think you got to see it. And I don't know if anybody else did, but
no, I had no idea that they did the 2025 trailer yet.
It was a teaser. It got leaked out from Comic-Con, but it was getting pulled down left and right. And it's actually, it was kind of okay. What it was made like one of those old educational videos, sort of. Mm-hmm. But it was basically, it starts off with Reed Richards teaching his class, and then it shows the group getting ready to go out outer space, and then it shows like a dating show bit with the Thing. So it's basically all the stuff that a lot of us old school Fantastic Four fans would probably enjoy. And I liked what I saw for the most part. What did you say, Andre? Because I'd probably say you're probably more of a F4 fan than I probably am.
Well, I'm smart enough to realize that the Fantastic Four aren't really about the Fantastic Four themselves, but about their gallery of villains and cosmic adventures. The Fantastic Four themselves are less important than their adventures. I thought it was fine. I like the retro-futurism aspect. Yeah,
Galactus too,
I like the retro-futurism aspect of it. but beyond that, I need to see more before like I'm convinced. I'm not
So there's
like,
a
yes, this is going to be awesome. I was like, this has potential, but my big problem is that I have completely and utterly lost faith in
Oh, I don't
Kevin
think the
Feige
movie's
and
going to be any
everyone
good.
working there.
I'm talking
This
about
is
the
my
look.
issue.
I'm talking
The
about the
look, I
look and the
think, is going to
feel.
be fine.
Yeah.
The look, I think, is going to be fine.
Sorry, I should have been more specific. That's my
Yeah.
fault.
Are
Like,
you talking
yeah.
about the trailer from 5 months ago?
No,
No.
the one from
This
this
just
weekend leaked.
yeah, it leaked online. Gary was there, and he said, "Yes, that's the." He explained what the way he explained it is exactly what ended up leaking, and
I see.
yeah, it kind of comes off like an old school, 8 mil or a 16 millimeter that you'd watch in a school, kind of thing. That's the way the trailer kind of comes off. It'll probably be out this week, he said. So I wouldn't be surprised if it hits the net pretty soon, because they were pretty hardcore bringing it down. Like the 2 or 3 links I sent to Andre were down before he even had a chance to finally catch one of them that didn't get shut down.
Yeah, indeed, exactly. So they're taking that thing down fast, and it looked fine. I mean, look wise, it's fine. I would like to see more. We haven't seen too much. I mean, there wasn't much there that we haven't already seen in like the early episodes of Westworld. But yeah, has potential in terms of looks. My problem is that the only team that has shown that they can do Marvel right these days is Team Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
Whereas Kevin Feige has only demonstrated failure after failure, and now we are supposed to be excited for their upcoming things, given that they just come from a string of failures, and that is what this entire rebranding of the Avengers to Kang Dynasty into Avengers Doomsday seems like to me extremely reactionary. Now, I'm not, of course, opposed to them removing Kang from the equation entirely, because he was removed from the table in Loki season 2. He never ever needs to be brought up and addressed
I
ever
think they
again.
kind of confirmed that he's done.
Yeah, by all accounts, he is done, and that's perfectly
No, I think
fine.
they were directly asked about it, and I think they even kind of said in a roundabout way that
Wow, they're really lucky with that ending at Quantumania where he loses and gets vaporized.
Well, I heard I've been hearing rumors that they recast him. I have a feeling what they're going to do is I wouldn't be surprised, because wasn't it you script or somebody else had the idea that they should just have Dr. Doom kill the Kang variants right in like one fell swoop?
Yeah, well, the thing is like Kang has with the announcement of Dr. Doom and it being Robert Downey Jr., there's something you can do where you can resolve Kang, still get the original Tony Stark, and still have Dr. Doom doing the horrible things, especially across the multiverse. So who knows how they're going to try and tie all these crazy loose ends together. But it would be quite interesting to see all of Kang's efforts usurped by Dr. Doom, because essentially at this point, what one thing I kind of noticed when I was looking back at the original MCU is that Loki was kind of presented as initially the big bad before they introduced Thanos. And then Loki ended up becoming subservient to Thanos with regards to Avengers. And then he was kind of veered off course to just be a regular mischief guy
because people liked him. Yeah.
Because people liked him. It seems that they're going to try and repeat that model with Kang, where he's just really the stepping stone to Doctor Doom now, as opposed to where he was originally going to be the big bad. They're like, no, we're going to Loki him. And it makes sense why also Loki and Kang are kind of paired together with that Loki series, because it's like, oh, okay. So he's trying to set up these bigger, but if they bring in Doctor Doom, they're now going to be saying, okay, Kang is our Loki in this phase and Dr. Doom is our Thanos in this phase. That's what they're
Kang is indestructible.
Kang's supposed to be indestructible, yeah. But I mean, he was killed in Quantumania, and then his other variants are still out there.
Well, they were supposed to be up there. Actually, in reality, his storyline was resolved in Loki season 2, which ended the entire Kang dynasty. So right now, the way it is, you have to go in and you have to do a change to the TVA in order to bring back Kang, because his storyline, as of right now, is resolved and he's done. He doesn't exist because the TVA is going to make sure that future Kang variants don't actually become Kang. And that's kind of like take care of his story. There really is no loose ends there, provided one has seen Loki season 2. In order to resolve that loose end on the big screen, you'd have to rethread it in a sense.
In some regards, yes, because the most dangerous Kang, which was in Ant-Man Quantumania, was defeated by Ant-Man. So that one's done. So he doesn't exist anymore in that
None
part.
of them exist right now.
And then the one in Loki, all the ones in Loki's outside of that one, they're all tied up. Loki's sitting on a throne with branches sticking out of him, keeping everything at bay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I mean that's something that really doesn't need addressing. You can leave Kang forever behind right now, and it's fine. Never needs to revisit it again.
Yeah, no, I'm sure if they even bother, right? Like you're right in that respect, they might not even bother.
They'd have to reconvolute it just to mention it, because as it is
Well,
right
he's already
now,
been left in 2 cases, like you said, script in the movie. He was defeated by Ant-Man. So if you haven't even seen the shows, and the last time you've seen him, he was defeated by Ant-Man, or if you've seen Loki, he was defeated there. So yeah, go
yeah.
ahead.
So technically, there exists no Kang right now anywhere in the multiverse. There's no Kangs out there, none, not a single one. They're all gone.
Yeah.
There are no Kangs left. His story, like that storyline has been resolved. And the only way to bring it back is you kind of like have to rethread it. You have to make there be some kind of fail in the TVA. And of course, then the Kang dynasty pops instantly back up. But basically, you'd have to convolute it just to bring him back up again. Of course, I wouldn't put it past the idiots at Marvel to do just that.
Unless anybody has anything really more to say about Robert Downey Jr. in this moment in time, there's a couple other things they did get into because they kind of needed that Robert Downey Jr. announcement to generate some sort of interest and something out of the fans, because basically all they have is the Thunderbolts and Captain Falcon, and that's the only other thing they really showed anything from besides Deadpool and Wolverine at this Comic-Con from Marvel, because they have nothing else. But what that tells me is what we've been hearing is true, and that is that they kind of pretty much killed everything in the future. They've reconfigured now what they're doing with the Avengers, so that really they don't really know what is coming up past that point. So all we know is what we've got coming out here, and that is those 2 shows, which would be Agatha, which is the next thing we got coming up, and eventually Ironheart's going to get dropped somewhere in there.
Plus, they have also filmed Wonder Man, so that one is also
and Daredevil Born Again.
Daredevil Born Again. I forgot about that, but I didn't see Wonder Man in any of the announcements anywhere.
No, but it is in the can. It has been filmed.
Mm-hmm.
But we are probably will learn something at D23. But we are unfortunately losing Mr. Chato.
So yeah, Paul, any final thoughts on all this Comic-Con business?
No, I mean it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah.
Let me double check and make sure there ain't no super chats for you while you plug your wares.
Super chads for me.
Super chads.
Yeah, you and your MGTOW movement, big guy.
Yeah.
MGTOW.
See, Dr. Doom. I think that would be so cool.
Dr. Doolittle.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing. I'm looking forward to seeing Deadpool Wolverine again tomorrow. I really want to.
I want to see it again too. I think it's got a lot of layers to it.
Oh yeah. I was surprised when I saw Henry Cavill. That was a surprise. Oh, didn't expect that. I thought the movie gave a lot of actors an opportunity to hide behind the movie and give Disney the middle finger.
Oh yes. Dave Gorig sends in €5 and says, Paul's idea writes itself. Theme song, MF Doom's 2004 song, Hoe Cakes.
You got it.
Keep your hoes in check. RDJ and Blackface is MF and Doom. Well, yeah. I don't know if you guys saw that while we were chit-chatting there. There's been a lot of the memes going around. In fact, I did the old first look at T'Challa and Doomsday. Honestly, I think I'd watch a movie where RDJ just played everybody.
I think so too. You know what? I think you're right. It is a bait and switch thing, but again, that's unnecessarily cheap. I mean, Script wrote a great piece on this, and you have such a rich history and such a rich galaxy of characters. This is like the best you can do. It's just
the other part too is
creatively bankrupt.
It really does feel that way. But the other part you have to ask is, who are they saving for the reveal of actual Dr. Doom?
I hope it's somebody decent. I really do.
Well, do you think they even have anyone at this point?
William Zabka.
I suspect they do, and they're used.
Johnny Lawrence.
William Zabka would be actually he's funny. But again, Doctor Doom is most likely going to be only a voice-over role because they're never going to show him outside of the costume.
They'll show.
The only
You're not
reason
going to
they'll show
have
him outside of the costume is because he's mind swiped into Tony Stark's body. That's the only.
I was going to say when he's Robert Downey Jr., they definitely will, but otherwise, no, you're not going to have him reveal until you reveal that because he thinks he's so.
But
deformed,
you just get the feeling that the team thought that this is just going to explode across the internet. And I think now that they're sampling the reaction of the internet to the announcement, I can imagine them sitting around going, well, what happened? Hey, we thought this was going to be huge, but it's kind of lukewarm. I don't understand what's going on.
They could still be in that phase, that honeymoon phase of it, to where it is trending. It is getting all the headlines. I don't know if they're really paying attention to the comments, though, Paul. Do you think they really are?
There's somebody paying attention to the comics.
Sure, of course.
But again, it goes down to I think when Robert Downey Jr., like, they'll use his face, but he's not going to be, at the end of the day, when this is all resolved, when things get back on track, at least according to what Marvel thinks is on track, Dr. Doom will never have his face revealed. And it'll be a voiceover character. It'll be like Hugo Weaving and V for Vendetta type of thing. And that's how it's going to be. The reason we're getting Robert Downey Jr.'s face is because of his face, which means that he's not. I mean, it's clear. There's something clear with this that I don't believe that Feige would do something that foolish to say this is the real Dr. Doom. This is his real face. This is everything, because Dr. Doom's gimmick is that he never shows his face because of the scars that he has on it. So the only way he would actually allow that is if he's in someone else's body. If he does do the other thing where he says, no, this is the real Dr. Doom, this is him showing his face, he's never going to have the mask and never going to have the scars, he's going to make way more negative waves with that than if you were to cast, say, Eddie Murphy as Dr. Doom.
Well, here's my thing is I disagree that they'll never show his face. I think it'll be a big reveal eventually when you get the quote unquote real Dr. Doom. I think it's going to be somebody like a Mads Mikkelsen or Christoph Waltz, somebody like that with some gravitas. And I think you're right.
A foot taller than.
That's the other thing people have been saying too, Paul. It's funny. But the reason I say that is because you have to have that reveal to show how vain he is, right? Like exactly. You have to have that moment where he's like, even if it's like just between him and Sue or something like that. And she's like, just let me see how bad it really is. And he's like, I'm hideous. And then he pulls it off. And of course, it's just that tiny little scar. The other one popular that's people have been saying is Henry Cavill.
Could be. But
I mean, see, that's the thing is you can also get somebody who has kind of a voice to where you can't quite tell who it is until the reveal too. That's the other gimmick you can play with.
Yeah. The thing is that whatever face you get of Dr. Doom, it's going to be before the accident that scarred him, because he never reveals it. Ever. He's actually even in the comics, he's actually fused that metal mask to his face so it can't be removed. Gotcha. So if we're only ever going to see his face, it's going to be before the accident in some sort of flashback or start of a
we
story.
Already have that in one of the Fantastic Four movies.
Yes, actually in both of them.
But that's a different universe. How much you want to bet that what scars him is actually the snap?
Could be. But I mean, the whole point of what scars him is that it's an accident between him and Reed Richards during college.
Right.
Yeah, but that was in the comics.
Yeah, that's in the comics. And going back to the 60s, then this Dr. Doom, if this is going to be the same one, it's
that's the other thing. Are they going to have RDJ just playing standard Victor Von Doom, not in the costume ahead of time? We don't know that part yet either. So we'll have to wait.
And he's not getting his $50 million for this thing. He's probably getting $2 or $3 million because, again, his quote has dropped dramatically since.
That's true, but Pro brought up he's going to have some interesting credits on this script.
So credits are just reputation points. They don't actually mean dollar values.
Oh, they can.
I mean, exactly. They can.
On the actor side of thing, not always, because Patrick Stewart had a number of producer credits. He did not get a huge pay bump on the Star Trek feature films or even on Picard.
That's because those technically really didn't make that much money.
No,
those were Marvel money-making type movies, right? Like, part of the reason RDJ got those bigger paydays is because he got back end points on the other deals, and that's when they're like, well, fuck it, we're just going to pay him up front instead.
Yeah, I'm sure he's going to get paid a crap ton. But Culture, unfortunately,
Culture also has to go. We got a super chat for him as well.
I'm predicting that Dr. Doom in school overheated some Mr. Noodle, and it exploded
on a hot plate. Yeah,
that's weird.
Seared his face. That's my.
It's probably better than anything Marvel is going to come up with.
Wow. How about a radioactive spider juice gets boiled on his face or something?
But T-Neil89 says for $10, there's the future story of how Tom got Nate's Toyota.
Oh,
Take
wow.
that from Solo, superimpose Nate's head onto Lando, Tom's onto Han, Cultured onto Chewbacca.
Yeah, that's low effort work.
Over the Falcon.
It's funny he says this because I had this vision that Tuesday, this is how this is going to go. Yeah, he's going to get a little defensive about it, and he's going to up the ante on the bet.
Culture can't be Chewbacca because it's got to be me because he's Chewbacca.
I think that.
Although
works.
that could also be our friend here script, but.
You're right, but this is because we're on Nate's afternoon shows on Tuesday and Thursday, and that's where this bet was made. See,
and
I bet him that Deadpool,
Mr. H reviews.
Yeah. And I bet him that Deadpool and Wolverine was going to be the biggest movie of the year, and he scoffed at me. So,
well, you beat him. Anyway, gotta go.
Not yet, but
no, you
find out in December.
Gotta wait till December.
Bye, Culture. Bye, everyone.
Bye. And I will make my adieu as well. Everybody have an incredible day.
Check out Appalling News. Check out Calling Chato. Check out Culture Casino. What other gaming channels? The Gay Channel.
That game place.
That gay place.
I'm gonna go now. Bye.
Link for that gay place is in the description. And with that, let us revert to super chats.
Let us, yes, because that'll get us back into the topics we were talking about anyway. So, Douglas Nelson says with $10, thanks again, Doug. Deadpool and Wolverine was always going to do well for Deadpool. Oh yeah, it will do jack squat for the MCU. Yep, and we've all said that too. All they have to follow all they have to follow it with is Agatha and Captain Falcon. Yep, that we've all been saying that for a while. This is an island in a sea of piss. It's just a road bump to worse things.
And that they would even come out and say that Captain Falcon, this is the single most important upcoming movie that is going to decide the future direction. A movie that they have now filmed 3 times over. And that where the production cost is probably right now reaching or even exceeding Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny levels. And it's from the same team that has given us all this dreck ever since WandaVision. It's a bold strategy, but I don't see it working for them. Do you think that we can all be pleasantly surprised by Captain Falcon?
No. But the stuff that's coming forth, maybe, because again, it's been confirmed that Marvel fired 15 producers that were considered activists and were key players in the last 2 phases of Marvel. So with those people gone and they're finding new blood, it's got a potential. But again, it's still a really uphill it's still a big uphill battle. There's still a high target for them to hit that I don't know if they have the strength to do so. So yeah, it's going to be a rough year for Marvel. Iger and Disney will definitely hang their coat on Deadpool and Wolverine for this.
I was going to say, what's funny?
Money.
Remember when we had all the Flash business? The Falcon movie is quickly becoming their Flash. They should have just fucking released it when they originally were going to release it and took the lumps.
Yep.
Because Deadpool and Wolverine would have just erased anybody's memory of that shit at this point.
Instead, it is going to erase any memory of
yep, because it comes out in February.
Yeah.
So that's the next, and then that's going to bleed into the fucking Thunderbolts. Like, who wants to see that shit anyway? They had Harrison Ford all coked up on stage hulking out for that. Like, that was hilarious. Like, oh God. Is anybody remotely excited for the Thunderbolts? Because all I keep hearing about it is it's just basically their answer to the Suicide Squad.
Let's put up a poll and ask the audience.
Let's.
Because Thunderbolts I see as an even bigger problem than Captain Falcon. So I'm going to put up a poll here. Are you excited for the? We'll just keep on doing some super chats while I.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we learned, Andre, is that they're finally going to acknowledge the big person sticking out of the earth in Captain Falcon too.
Yes, they are. They've. It's also going to relate more to the mutants aspect of the MCU as well.
Patrick Robinson sends in $9.99, says, also, wife and I are planning to see Trap and Harold and Purple Crayon this weekend. Heard positive things about Trap, but nothing about Harold. Your thoughts on both movies? Well, I don't know anything about either, but I believe, if I remember correctly, wasn't the Purple Crayon one that Chris Gore was praising?
Maybe.
I think it's one he mentioned a while back. But yeah, I don't know much about Trap either, so I wish I could. Anybody know anything about it?
Nope. Sorry.
Not familiar with it.
No. Sorry about that, Patrick. But yeah, I did hear some things about Harold and the Purple Crayon supposed to be good. Mario Trillo says with 5, I think this is more proof of how bad Disney and Pixar brand has gotten. Wolverine and Deadpool would never have a chance even 5 years ago. Kill the rat. What do you mean it wouldn't have had a chance even 5 years ago? As far as
I
Disney's,
think it would have done great 5 years
ago.
I
think what he's saying here, though, Andre, is that Disney would have never allowed it 5 years ago.
This is true.
This is a fluke, which is hilarious. Is that Disney's standing on these laurels? Well, here's the thing: they had their opportunity. They couldn't, if they hadn't killed Fox, they could keep making R-rated movies under Fox, because that's what they used to use Miramax and Hollywood and Touchstone for. In fact, their last. Once you remove Miramax from the equation, their last successful R-rated film was Pretty Woman. 1990. And they had some of the biggest films in the 80s that were PG-13 and such. And Pretty Woman was huge. But then they bought Miramax and they quit making so many R-rated films under the Touchstone and Hollywood Pictures banner. And since then, they've had this stigma where we're not going to do R-rated material since they sold Miramax. Well, I thought that was part of the reason they bought Fox. So you can make that kind of stuff and you didn't have to worry about it being sullied or worried about sullying the Disney brand or whatever. And it made no sense to me. But anyway, you got your poll up, Andre?
I do, yeah.
That's what she said.
And the results so far are not great for the Thunderbolts, with 92% saying, "Dear God, no, they're not the Thunderbolts."
Glade Ribbon's been a member for 23 months. Says missed opportunity. Deadpool cameos in every Marvel movie since the Fox acquisition. I thought we were going to get a scene kind of like that. Even if it's just, like I said, you got the bit where he's like messing with Thanos so much that Thanos is just like, you know what? Tommy Review sends in 5 and says the only good thing about the Olympics opening was Gojira played, and I also got the Wolverine Ussy popcorn bucket. And my girlfriend loved shirtless Logan in the movie. I think all the women loved shirtless Logan in the movie.
I think all the women loved that scene more than they liked seeing themselves represented on screen in the Marvels.
Very much so. Yeah. And I can't wait for it's funny. I can't wait for the articles about how this is a problem that this movie did so much, is doing so well with 2 white male leads. We're only a couple days away from those, right? And then we got Marksman 117B says, despite the flaws, Deadpool 3 feels like a breath of fresh air. Tom is right. That alone carries a lot of weight. Add Hugh and everything else. Easy billion. Yep. Well, Deadpool hadn't been bogged down by the MCU to this point, too. Toga Free sends in another $4.99. Oh, we got this one already. So he didn't send in another. That was from the one from before that we read. I just forgot to uncheck it. Action Com says with $2, anyone see the fan short Alien Monday? Nope, I have not.
I also have not.
Script?
Nope.
Didn't think so. Sorry about that. We have not seen it. Tennille sends in another 2 and says Fanny Herrera named after the origin of her ideas. Oh. Yeah, she pulled them out of her fanny. Robert sends in 2 and says, I was expecting Cranston for Dr. Doom, not RDJ. Well, that still would have been a better choice, but Cranston's probably a little on the short side, too. Not that it matters, but... Thunderstorm sends in 499, says they cannot overcome the drop-off in writing quality with gimmick. I don't understand why they stopped writing good stories. Well, it's because the propaganda, the message, trying to make it the MCU, all those things mixed in a pot.
Hiring good writers. I mean, that's
that too. And decent directors on top of it all who know how to actually execute good stories. Don't underestimate that as well.
Push back against producers when they're making a bad decision. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And that's part of the reason they're desperate and trying to get people like the Russos back into the mix. Some of it could work. I think it's going to be a mixed bag going forward, to be honest with you guys. I mean, really, if you had to sit down and evaluate what's going to happen here, I think we're going to get a few things that are okay, a few things that are not so great. Does this mean that superhero movies are like dead or not dead at any? No, they're just going to be kind of like they used to be, right? Remember when we would get one every once in a while, not 12 a year. You know, I think we're going to get back down to just a couple a year at tops.
Marvel's going to hit their target. They want it to be 3 to 4 a year still, which is bad. I think 2 is.
I think that's the. Honestly, even 1 or 2. I think I agree. Script 2 in your off years, and then like if you're doing an Avengers movie, that's when the year you only have like 1. So you can offset your cost. But I mean, honestly, I still think they need to get back to just kind of making these movies not so reliant on each other. That's the other thing they cannot get out from underneath at this point, sadly. Marks 11-7B says, script, any cocaine shark news?
Outlines are done.
Nice.
So yeah, it's we'll see what happens in the next. It's going to take a spell to get it done. You don't want to rush a script like this. You want to make sure it's good.
Yeah. And then we got David Morris, who sends in £5, sorry, and says, take my money. Well, we will. And so we'll Google for that matter. Chris K sends in 2 and says Star Trek films 2, 3, 4, and 6 will live forever. Yeah, but that was a different time, Chris. And those movies were made for a completely different budget, completely different audience. Sadie.
Well, it's the same audience for today, but you're right about the budget. These are basically mid-budget films, and in order for Star Trek to be a valid theatrical or a viable theatrical franchise again, it can't be big budget. It would have to go back to being a medium budget thing like it was before. That's the only way it can be sustainable.
And I disagree a little bit on the audience, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it would have to cost basically significantly less than a Ghostbusters movie costs in order to be sustainable.
Yeah, that I agree with. And the other part is, you have the type of audience that's going to... The audience doesn't go to see movies now like they did in the 80s. Right? That was different then. Different amount of people. Plus you had the kids that grew up with Star Trek then. Those guys are grandpas or in nursing homes now. Right? So, I mean... It is a different world. And this is where Emma Watts was 100% correct. You cannot make these movies for the type of money J.J. Abrams is spending on them, because that's not the kind of money they make. And if you did the inflation on them, the J.J. Abrams movies made the same amount of money in the box office as Star Trek 2 and 3 and 4, basically as the biggest.
Or to put it in a slightly different frame, it was attended by the same amount of people.
Basically, yes, thank you. But the difference is that Star Trek 09 and Into Darkness cost 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times as much, basically, as those movies did. That's the difference.
And it was seen by the same amount of people as a movie with a fraction of the budget.
And they learned this back then because of the first movie, right? Because they did the first film and it was profitable, but it was barely profitable because it cost too damn much to make. So they amortized the cost of that first movie into the second film and to the third film and to the fourth film and so on. And that was why those movies were more profitable, because they didn't cost nearly as much. And then those movies then helped lend themselves to amortize into Star Trek The Next Generation, and so on from there. They didn't start becoming less profitable until TNG era, but that's just because you didn't have as broad of an audience for the Picard era stuff as you did for Kirk. That was kind of how that worked out.
Indeed. But let's move on.
Yeah.
We have more super chats to go
As
through.
Clockwork sends in 5 and says there's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Mostly dead is slightly alive. Yes, that's a nice quote from Princess Bride. Douglas Nelson sends in 5 and says, Andre, look on the bright side. At least it's not Victoria Von Doom. Well, not yet anyway. Yeah, just say not yet.
Now, imagine you can still do Victoria Von Doom if this theory is correct, and the real Doctor Doom, that it's Victoria Von Doom. You get like some trans stuff in there with some body, and then non-fluid gender Freaky Friday thing. I wouldn't put it past them to make Victoria Von Doom still.
Right, because we did hear those rumors too. Gojira Star sends in 5 and says, is Feige trying to set up showdown with JB Avengers versus evil version of the OG Avengers, Tony versus Dr. Doom, Old Man Cap leads to Hydra Cap? This could be. I wouldn't put it past him, Gojira Star. Again, they think they're being clever, but they're not really.
Yeah, again, I hope not. But Feige has disappointed me so many times over. I have absolutely no faith in his abilities whatsoever anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did something this stupid.
Then Joey says with 10, why can't they just use the original Cap's adventures in time after Endgame returned to the one universe timeline? I've said this many times. Not the last aspect, though. That's an interesting point to it. But shit, there's stuff that's introduced in Deadpool and Wolverine that they could have used to just fix a lot of this shit. And I think that's going to come back into play later on, but that's probably what Secret Wars is going to end up being all about, is conforming all the timelines into one. Jason Webster sends in 5 Australian, says, Tom, when are you going to return unearthing lost rock music classics like... goes on to say, those from fire-breathing whores known for their songs I Am Your Private Pole Dancer, Britney Spears singing Gave Me Tinnitus, and How the Hell Did We End Up in Bed? Well, Jason, the fad seems to have worn off, and I never quite got the acknowledgement, and I didn't make enough off of them to spend the kind of money and time that I did on making them. But you never know. You never know. I might from time to time. In fact, I had an idea for one like a week or so ago, or a couple days ago, and got writing it, and of course the stupid thing wouldn't let me finish it. So I wish it'd just tell me what I'm doing wrong, like, because it won't let certain phrases through, that's all. But anyhow, I'll keep that in mind, Jason, and hopefully we can get back to those soon. But yeah, they just didn't quite catch on. That's the main thing. And then we got Chaos Sonic, who says, I'm also betting, they will take cues from Superior Iron Man, where Dr. Doom plays the role of Iron Man with new armor and tries to be a good guy. I've heard people bring this up too. I don't know if you're familiar with that one at all, Script.
I know about that story.
Yeah. So that's always also a possibility. But
but the thing is, that would still preclude that Robert Downey Jr. is playing the original Dr. Doom, and I don't think that's going to be the case.
Mm-hmm. And then Tennille brings up that we wasn't Kangs. Well, at least not anymore. Chaos Sonic 1 says with $5, what I find hilarious is that Chato, I'm sorry we missed this one before Chato left, that Chato sort of described the plot of Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock took over Peter's body. Dan Slott still get mad. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the other gimmick, another Freaky Friday situation. Although Peter Parker's not in Ock's body, he's just floating around, kind of like Firestorm from DC. So yeah, very strange thing.
Master Clockwork does a different version. Instead of Robert Downey Jr., he's got Pedro Pascal playing not only Dr. Doom, but Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, the Thing, and the Invisible Woman. Interesting. Thunderstorm sends in $4.99 and says, Top Ramen will scar Dr. Doom in college, and his COVID mask will melt him in the face. Oh, my. I don't know about that. Oh, we got this one already. Accident Seller sends in 50 Norwegian Krona and says, just saw episode 7 of House of Dragon. No spoilers in chat or panel, but it was so metal. It was rad. It stomps Doctor Who and the Acolyte to bloody pulp. Yeah, I've not checked the show out yet, but has anybody here on the panel that wants to comment on it?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's okay. It's good.
Yeah, and if you liked the last episode, fantastic. Been hearing good things, but not seen it myself.
Yeah.
There you go. And then we got Jason Webster again, who says, manager of fire-breathing horses, Dwight No Rocks Johnson. The nickname was given after a bicycle accident led to removal of his testicles. Ouch, ouch. Leaving him with a high-pitched voice as a result. Oh, that sucks. I'll have to try and keep these in mind just in case, Jason, and thank you for the inspiration. Grad Admiral Adam sends in a member chat and says, Inside Out 2 is at 1.5 billion. I don't think Deadpool and Wolverine will pass it. You don't, huh?
It's a very tall order, but
it is, but it's off to a good start.
Yeah. We shall see. We shall see. In order for Tom to win that bet, it's going to have to do more than that, because that right now is the thing to beat. Can it do it? Time will tell.
Yeah, basically I can lose this bet before I win it. That's for sure, because if anything, if Deadpool fails to live up to Inside Out 2, then yeah, I'm definitely lose the bet. But if it surpasses 1.5 and happens to hang on, and Moana 2 doesn't kill it, and there's nothing else that surprises the hell out of us between now and the end of the year, which I don't think there will be anything necessarily, I think I got that bet in the bag. I don't know. People are underestimating this. Even 6 doesn't think it's going to happen. I don't know.
Again, a very tall order, but time will tell.
Here's the difference. Kids' movies, people only tend to go to once. Then they wait for video. What have we been talking about this entire show? Going back to see it again. I wanted to go see it again this weekend, but I didn't get a chance to. And the one time I was going to go, the theater was sold out because I wanted to see it in the large screen format. Or at least all the decent seats were sold. So I was like, fuck that. But yeah. Anyway, with that, we're all caught up, and we're going to get out of here. So, Script, what you got going on?
I've got my Saturday show this Saturday. We're going to be reviewing a screenplay called Upset. It's another cops and robbers types of story. And also, if you haven't already, you can go check out my Patreon, where I actually go into a little bit more detail with regards to what Marvel might be doing with the Robert Downey Jr. stuff. So go check that out as well. And outside of that, I'm back to the grind, working on writing 2 other screenplays at the same time right now. So that's what I'll be doing in the interim.
Nice. As far as me, well, there is not going to be a Toxic Femme tonight. Sorry, guys. Nina's under the weather and such, so no show tonight, but we will return next week, and I'm sure the ladies have plenty to say about Wolverine and Deadpool and Robert Downey Jr. and all that stuff. So yeah, so check in for that. And Andre, any videos coming up that we should plug?
There will be videos. Don't know exactly when. Maybe tomorrow.
Alrighty, and with that, as you say,
it is time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koala, koala. Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koala, koala. Koalas in the rain.